Good evening, this is the April 2nd, 2019 Budget Workshop Session of the East Long Meadow Town Council. I'll open the meeting now with a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And during our moment of silence, we ask that you keep our first responders and our servicemen and women around the globe in your thoughts. Thank you. Pursuant to Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being audio and videotaped. If there's anyone in the audience who is also doing taping, please identify yourselves. And it looks like we are the only show in town right now. Moving on to number 3, as I said in my opening remarks, this agenda tonight is totally dedicated to the review of department requests in our East Long Meadow budget process. We have the town manager's FY20 draft budget before us, and we have a scheduled list of departments who are going to be speaking tonight. Denise, did you want to make any quick overview remarks?
I don't think so. Certainly the departments that are here tonight have very detailed information for you all to hopefully answer any questions you have. I have asked them not to stress that if they don't have an answer, rather than shuffling through a whole
We'll get it.
giant pack of paper, that we will get the information to you all on the specific question. I think maybe going forward, if there are questions from the council, if they filter through the president so that I don't get 20 emails from different people, that if you have specific questions on the budgets that are coming up, those departments can be prepared. The next one is going to be the school. So that's pretty specific to one department that you might want to email me the questions, but also the superintendent and the chairman of the board. So you have a...
I have some of the information that
Oh,
you
yes.
at the last meeting, so I thought I'd put that at the beginning.
Sure.
Thanks, sir.
So what's coming around is the answer to 2 of your questions. One of them was you wanted a chart of all of the positions that are requested, their salary and their benefits. So you will see on that chart that I put the department, their title, the salary, and the salary impact on fiscal 20. So some of the positions were not budgeted for the entire year. They were budgeted for a partial year. So I wanted you to be able to see both what's going to impact the fiscal 20 budget as well as what would impact going forward with future years. And I also did the benefits calculation the same way, one showing what will impact fiscal 20 budget and one column showing you what would impact for the total. And a couple of comments that I thought were important for you to understand. And then the other thing that I'm sending around is the question was posed as to how much would it take to move the tax rate a certain amount. So I did a little chart showing you if you wanted to move it a penny, how much versus 10 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents. Keeping in mind that this is based on the budget presentation from last week on March 26th. So it's based on all the assumptions that were there. So as assumptions change, that rate could change a little bit, but for the most part, it will take about approximately $20,000 to move the tax rate up or down 1 penny. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's not color-coded?
Also, here are the
vehicle,
vehicle list
the asset
that
list,
you
yeah.
asked for.
Yep.
And it was updated this afternoon
Is it
to
one page?
include, yes. It was updated today to include the shifts in the vehicles that have already taken place because some of the new vehicles came in. Now, if you, are you looking for like the Public Works trucks as well? Tom, because you're surprised it's on one page? Did you want that as well?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful too.
We can get that.
Those are our fleets,
Yeah.
really, when it comes down to it. It's the
Certainly.
PD and the fire we're pretty familiar with. I mean, it's a set number.
Okay.
But
I can-
DPW definitely.
We can certainly get that. In fact, I probably have it here. I think you presented it with the budget.
Well, I have it on the Google Sheets program, maintenance program.
So it's
But
easy to put
I have an updated fleet schedule. I actually had my, one of my personnel working on it today, because obviously there's been shift in some vehicles. Kevin Duquette, the building inspector, received Explorer. So
That's
we're-
noted on here, on the list that I gave you. You'll see that's noted there. So that's why I got those vehicles, because there are no new vehicles being requested for Public Works at this time. So these are the ones that are shifting around, going to building, to a couple to Public
Water
Works.
sewer administrator and the building facilities.
Right. So we're taking some, moving them around, taking some off. And those that would be coming off totally will likely be auctioned, because that seems to be the best. But by the time we've used them up, they're
They're used up.
really used up. Which is a good thing. That's what it's all about. Sarah had asked me if you want her to sit, in case there are financial questions throughout, but I think to have the department heads up, and you have both Tom Christensen and Bruce Binney here. So if there are some impact that would be financial, then Sarah can come up to those, but I don't think she'll have to be up and down.
Okay, that being said, gentlemen from the Public Works, Mr. Fenny and Mr. Christensen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure how you want to proceed. Do we want to go by division as far as the budget, or just open it up for questions? I did give each one of you a packet. In that packet consists of our organizational chart, our snow and ice report. That report is used by myself. This tracks how much salt we use, how much diesel fuel we use, how much overtime labor is involved with snow and ice removal, just to kind of give us a sense for next year what to look for and what to go out when we go out to bid for salt and everything else. So on that sheet does not include any vehicle repairs or anything like that, just specifically salt, labor, diesel fuel, things like that. Okay?
Interesting, thank you.
The other thing in your packet too, I gave you a list of our existing training activities. Obviously, OSHA took place in February this year, February 9th, I believe. So this is our ongoing kind of safety training schedule for the upcoming year. You can see how it's reflected in my budget. That's why I thought it was important to give to you, because in each one of our divisions, I've increased our training budget line items based on the needs of the departments. Last but not least in your packet, I started developing a Parks Division maintenance standards and practice based on, obviously, residents, the Recreation Department. I think is needed for us to develop a plan like this, to evaluate our fields, come up with an overall plan, and basically, obviously, our staff, what we have and what they're capable of doing with our current staff. So, and at the end of that, I gave you a brief synopsis of what I think is required in the near future. And like you said, I gave it to you because obviously the budget was due back in February, and just to give the council some things to discuss if you choose to do so. Okay? So how would you like to proceed with the budget?
We've been,
Division by division?
I would say, yes.
Okay. Okay, we're going to start with the Building Maintenance Division, 422.
What document are we on?
We have to go back into our own.
You go into your own budget and you'll see the breakdown of the budgets,
421.
but, yeah, by number. So you're not starting with 421?
I have
Oh, you've got it
my
now.
big
Okay.
giant sheet, it's just easier for me
Okay.
to read.
No, that's fine.
Do you want me to touch on each line item, or just the ones that have been increased or decreased?
Each one.
Each one? Okay. Under line item 5110, full-time salaries, that is an increase of 2.9% for contractual obligations.
Can you just hold up 1 second,
Okay.
please? I'm trying to find it. This doesn't have pages on it.
Yeah,
Page
I'm counting.
pagination, yeah.
What's the number instead?
Well, there's no page number.
Um,
It's 421,
That's what,
421.
6 in.
I got it.
Are you guys looking at this?
You're looking at that.
Yeah, that's the only
This
one we've
one,
had a
right?
chance to review,
Yep.
Bruce, so we're gonna be
Yes.
working with this one.
You're about 5 pages in there,
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
under public health.
Is everybody there?
Yep.
Yep.
Then you get yours. Public health, I got it right here. This one. There, 421.
So, under the 421, salary line item, I believe, so we have an increase on that division. Let's see, this is different. Full-time salaries is a 2.9% increase from last year. So last year was at $115,563.79. This year is $107,253.94, an increase of 2.9%.
Through the chair. Excuse me.
Yes.
Bruce, we're working with different numbers here,
Do you
so
have the
I'm not
budget
familiar with the
presentation?
numbers you're talking about.
So how could they be so different? So-
It says a 7.7, I'm not sure what
This is
that,
full-time salary line, and this is showing full-time, part-time, longevity, clothing. It's showing all salary type items. He's just reading off one particular line of salary in his.
okay.
Again, we don't have that information. We're working from the proposed budget sheet, the draft that was submitted to us from the town manager. So I propose that we continue to work from this, since this is the only document we've looked over.
Gotcha.
Which should just be your sum total.
Right, gotcha.
So we
Sum
don't-
total salary.
Okay.
You've
Okay.
given us the other documentation here, which we'll look at, I'm sure.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Okay, so that first line item, obviously, it's a 7.7% increase for contractual obligations. The non-salary items are actually a negative of 4.7%. And the next one is the total of all the divisions, which is a total increase of 4.0% for salaries under the highway division.
Salaries and non-salaries.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions? Moving on, under Division 422, Building Facilities and Maintenance. Under the salary line item, that's a 3.8% increase for contractual increases. Non-salary increases in the total of $1,956.80 is a 0.5% increase. And this is for OSHA training. That gives a total for that division of 2.3% increase.
Question for you.
Yes.
It's the second time on contractual increases that the amount was higher than what I guess I would have thought it was going to be. I think during the contract negotiations, it was 2% across the board.
Correct.
So
It was
how do we end up with 3.8?
If you recall at the last, when I was presenting the budget, we have 2% that was, because we were in negotiations at the time. We did not put salary increases in there. We instead put a lump sum of money so that it's budgeted, but it's under, what's
The reserve fund.
the reserve fund, so that we knew that we would fund it after. But if you put in salary increases in your budget and project what you're doing, then you can be accused of unfair bargaining.
Okay.
That the labor
That makes
folks
sense.
will say, You
already
already,
had a
it's predetermined.
predetermined, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what you were gonna give us, so you're
Understand.
not even bargaining in good faith.
So this is a combination of
is-
those two you spoke about?
This is the 2% for the year that is just done, and 2% projected for next year, because the contract already says
So,
that.
okay.
It's below a 4%, partially because there's shifts in the, in the folks that come and go. So we had quite a few retirements, or
Right.
people that left, and people that come in at a lower salary.
And you gotta remember this
Okay.
too, especially in the Department of Public Works. A portion of my salary comes out of the building division. We have secretaries that come out of the building division based on all the departments. So some of the salaries are split between different divisions, so, okay?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Under snow and ice, there was a 0% increase on 423. 429, under utilities, a 0% increase on that also. We have trash collection, that's really under the Board of Health, but that's a 7.0% increase, and that's
Which is a contract.
contractual obligations.
Does that come out of your budget?
No,
Board of
no,
Health.
It's more of an
But-
accounting
but it's
thing where
under your-
yeah, it's just the line number.
Okay.
The-
So even it's, yeah, okay, so it's under admin, highway and admin, but it's really,
Trash collections under the Board of Health. It just, like I said, I did talk to Sarah about it. It's just because of the designation, I guess, for the accounting side. It just, they
The numbers
lumped it all in
weren't
there.
sequenced,
So,
yeah.
well, yeah, so, yeah. Okay. Under waste collection, this would be the transfer station. So there was a salary increase of $1,392, $1,392.22. That's an 8.3% increase. That was for the minimum wages that came through on January 1st. Under the non-salary items, it's a 0% increase with a total increase of that division of 2.0%.
So again, look at the 8.3%. It looks like an alarming percentage, but when you look at the
Yeah.
dollar
no,
amount.
the dollar amount's
it's-
smaller, yeah.
It's just some part-time folks.
Yeah.
So for the Public Works, total general fund liability is a 3.3%, but if you took out the trash collection for all general fund liabilities, the Department of Public Works is at a 2.1%. Okay? Moving on.
Do you have any questions on any of those?
No,
No questions.
understand that.
So your overall, Bruce, is 2.1%?
Yes.
If you move out that trash piece.
Yes,
Right.
that's when you move out the trash piece,
Right.
yep. And then just reviewing, I believe that's it on the Public Works side. We do have the Water and Sewer Division.
So those are enterprise funds, so be okay with that.
Later in the document.
There's actually a label that says enterprise funds, and then
Yep.
they're all.
So this, I'm not sure how to read this one. This is actually, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, this is basically for water and sewer rate settings.
State required format to approve a budget for enterprise fund. So you can look at your sheet for your percentages, it's the same thing.
And as a reminder to the council, these are recommendations that come from the Public Works Board.
So, under the Water Enterprise Fund, okay, usage charges. So this is our projected revenue for next year, based on our new rate. Now, I'm assuming you haven't seen our new rates as of yet, because that's obviously next on our list. So this is based on those projections, so at $3.68850 million for next year. Interest, betterment is a zero. Interest earned is $50,500. Connection fees is $25,000. Under the Water Enterprise Fund expenses, personnel services, $583,471. Our operational budget expenses for next year, $1.469797 million. Our principal and interest, well, our principal is $510,500. That is for ongoing, our principal for our capital improvement projects that are currently going on. Our interest for all those capital improvement plans is $174,961. Our capital outlay is $53,675. Vehicle replacement reserve, $50,000. This is one of those items that we put into reserve, $50,000 per year for any kind of vehicle related to the water division. Budget surplus equals $301,946,000, with a total water enterprise fund expenses of $3,144,350. Water enterprise fund revenues. This is kind of a repeat of the upper section. I don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
Well, the question I would have is, it's about $575,000 or better increase. Why did that jump so much?
That is obviously for our ongoing capital improvement projects. And I wish I had my other sheet to refer to. So
Your debt service is up, because we borrowed some, so that is a piece
So
of it
the
right there.
debt service is up from the debt we bonded on September 28, 2018. So that impacts the debt itself, whether principal and interest. And then depending on the project, so for water, I believe water we did not plan to bond, but sewer we did. So for that potential bonding, we also included that principal and interest in those ones.
So what I have here is our anticipated beginning balance for FY20 is $24,577. I'm projecting a 30% increase on our water and sewer rates, 30 cents on the water, 40 cents on the sewer. So our beginning balance is $24,577. Our anticipated revenue is $3,118,500. Our operational expenses, $2,051,552.94. And I'm just reading, this is my own documentation, okay, based on our Board of Public Works meeting and my projections and everything else. So it doesn't necessarily reflect or mirror Sarah's numbers, okay?
And those are from the new rates?
Yes,
Bruce?
this is from the new rates.
Rates.
This is what I'm projecting, okay?
Is that documentation in here that you provided?
No, it's going to be in your rates and fees booklet once you receive that.
Okay.
Okay? And I wanted to explain more. I'm just, like I said, I wasn't prepared
good.
for this sheet. I have my own sheets that I refer to. We have a transfer from undesignated funds from FY19 at $150,000. Long-term debt and interest combined, $635,343.17, and anticipated ending balance of next year of $306,180.89. Now, the reason for these increases, and I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse because I haven't come to you to discuss the rates and fees, is we need to build up our reserve. We started with $24,000 this year in our water enterprise fund. Springfield Water and Sewer are going to be doing some major improvements at their Cobble Mountain facility in the tune of $25 to $30 million in the next couple of years. So we
Which
need to build up our
passes down
bank account a little bit in order to obviously pay our portion of those costs that are going to be passed down to other communities, and we are one of those communities.
Have they projected those costs out over a series of years?
Not yet. We had a meeting a couple months ago, and just as far as our water and the water quality, and you guys know about the water quality and all the rain and everything else and our exceedances that have happened. During that meeting, they were informing us that this will be coming down the road. And the reason for this is obviously because of the inclement weather and their existing I believe it's their slow sand filters that they're upgrading to rapid sand filters. So they don't have enough of the rapid sand filters in order to keep up with the demand of the water.
How does that help our community?
Well, we get better water quality once they obviously implement these new changes. So it all depends on what the demand is, what they're doing for maintenance. If they're taking, like you said, they had a bunch of the slow sand filters offline. So the slow sand filters obviously filter more of the HAAs and the THMs out of the water. That's the leftover byproducts from chlorination into our water system. So once you take those slow sand filters offline and put the rapid sand filters, obviously rapid means quicker, it's not able to filter out everything that needs to be filtered out of the water. So therefore, that's
But they haven't given any community any idea of what it's gonna cost.
No,
Not at this
no,
point.
not yet. They've given us the heads up that it's going to happen and to start preparing for it, so.
But what do you prepare for? I mean, $1,000, $1 million?
Well, it depends on how
Is there
much
any
they bonded, so
projections?
you have 4 surrounding communities, if it's $30 million, you divide that by 5, and depends on what their bond is and what the term is, so it's gonna be a significant amount. I just don't know how much.
And it's not the only upgrade that they're doing.
Right, yeah.
And we really have no option.
Yeah, I know we have to,
So
yeah, we purchased it
it's
from them.
extremely difficult.
Right.
They set the rates, they set the priorities as to
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to fix and when, and they hand the bills out to all the surrounding
And so
communities.
we can anticipate yearly increases in our water and sewer rates for the
Yes.
next foreseeable future?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it all depends too, like I said, capital improvement plans. We're doing almost $2 million in capital improvement plans this year. We have to paint the water tank for $1.2 million. We have an $845,000, I don't know if that's the exact number, of the water main replacement on Maple Street. So those all impact our rate. So if we don't do any improvements, obviously, it'll help
Shuffling down.
our rates, but it's not gonna do our
We're just
infrastructure
shuffling
any
them down the
good.
road, and
So.
and we have to.
Right.
We really- And Springfield Sewer and Water also has antiquated
Yes.
infrastructure that they're looking at to,
And I'm in close communication with the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, so like you said, once we get closer, I'll get those numbers and we'll start planning accordingly. Okay?
Okay, and this is not related, but it's a question that I thought about. Are we collecting fees from the state of Connecticut for any water that we provide to them?
We don't provide any water to them anymore.
No longer?
No.
So that's not,
That was, I don't know when that ended, I believe it was with Mr. Parent when he started, because I know on I keep a monthly sheet on how much comes into our city in 4 connection points, so part of that process is, they have on my sheet is that Connecticut water portion, but we don't do that anymore.
I know we were providing to like the,
Right, down
By the community.
Shaker Road,
Yeah.
down that way, yeah.
okay.
Yep,
So
we
that's
no
no
longer-
longer taking place,
No.
okay.
Nope.
Good to know.
Good. Okay, any more questions on the Water Enterprise Fund? No? Okay, we'll move on to the Sewer Enterprise Fund. So 2020 usage charges is $1,986,300. Our interest earned is $35,000. Our betterments is $10,000, and our connection fees is estimated about $30,000. Under Sewer Enterprise Fund expenses, personnel services, $513,224. Operating expenses is $926,403. Our debt services principal, $481,785. Our interest is $75,876. And our capital improvement plan portion is $247,892. And that's actually for our capital improvement projects that we'll be completing this upcoming year. We're not bonding those. That's what that figure is. And our vehicle replacement revenue is $50,000. So gives us a total expenses of $2,295,180.
This vehicle replacement is split between sewer and water.
Just sewer. So we're doing $50,000 in sewer and $50,000 in water. The bottom section is kind of a mirror of what's up top. So usage charges, $1,986,300. Interest earned, $35,000. Betterments, $10,000. Connection fees, $30,000. And retained earnings of $233,880, with a total of $2,295,180. Any questions?
No questions, anyone?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, stormwater.
That's what,
Yeah.
I was just gonna tell you, run, Bruce. but-
Well, stormwater, is that even in here?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it? Okay.
That's the next page.
Oh, there it is, jeez.
I did send it to everybody.
I actually just,
And that dramatic clause comes next time, get up.
so I do have a reading next week with you as far as the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. So when you see our rates and fees book, this is part of that, going to be part of that now, if that does go through. So just as a FYI, I do have the rates in there. I'm sure Denise will share with you, okay? So the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, usage charges, $289,075. Then we have personnel services, $83,880. Our operating expenses at $143,950. We have our capital investment of $45,000 and our budget surplus of $16,245, and with a total of $289,075. Any questions?
I have a question. The budget surplus, and so just, could you explain that a little bit?
The budget surplus should be our ending balance at the end of the year. That's all that
Should be,
means.
okay.
Should be.
All right.
And the question as well.
Yes.
The personnel services, what does that entail? How many full-time?
One full-time foreman, one person.
Yeah, one and one?
Yep.
Now, this is a general question, and I don't know if we're gonna go back, but in the stormwater, you mentioned that it's gonna be, you're looking for $289,075 to be funded, so that will fund your cost for this year?
That is based on the revenue of my projected,
Right.
based on the fees. Yes.
Okay, and that will suffice for the first year?
Yes, yes.
Okay. How does that reflect on the other departments, since they've been doing the work, according to the discussions that we've had?
Well, we've been actually just taking out a highway and just kind of spreading it out between water, sewer, and highway, some of the things. We did get a supplementary budget last year to help offset some of those expenses, so we received, I believe, $55,000 last year to help offset some of those expenses, because this, obviously, this past year was the first year of the new permit.
so it was just the startup costs that, before we even know the full impact of the I&I and all of that, and the full regulations that we were able to do it under the highway departments, but now we have to go to something that's segregated, so this defines it more. And I was meeting with Stephen Crane, the town manager in Long Meadow today, and they've had the stormwater for 2 years, their enterprise fund for 2 years. And he said that it will fluctuate up and down, but for right now, while it's being established, that in Long Meadow, it has gone up. So it's a matter of going up for a while and then maybe leveling off and then maybe dropping some. But
It all, yeah, and it all
starting up
depends on what
is
you find
tough.
once we start getting into the,
Yeah.
testing the outfalls, start chasing contaminants within the system. Hopefully, we don't find any. So that's really going to be the big thing.
Okay.
And if you look at the budget that Bruce went over at the beginning, Department 421, the non-salary, that's why it decreased 25,000, was because of the stormwater not being in there anymore, but now being in the enterprise fund, so that's
I
where
saw
you can
that
see
there,
it
but
on
it
the-
didn't reflect from the other departments you mentioned. So it came from all three, and there's only one that shows a reduction. So that was my question.
I robbed Peter to pay Paul, that's all.
Okay, so there's gonna be no savings from the water and sewer,
Yeah.
just from the highway.
Well,
Yes.
they're offset by the increase from Springfield Water and Sewer.
There was an increase, yes. So, kind of all over the place here. So the total budget impact for the water and sewer division, so sewer is going to be impacted by 4.5% increase, that total division. Water enterprise fund is 1.9% increase. Okay. Any more questions on stormwater? No? I'll kind of give you I want to give you guys an overview of all the divisions within the department. So our budget total is $7.5 million. I'm just rounding up here a little bit. Our salaries alone for the Department of Public Works is $3 million. Springfield Water and Sewer, we get billed for $2 million a year. So our total $1.1 million is for utilities only. So our total operational expenses for the total Department of Public Works is $1.4 million to maintain everything within the town of East Long Meadow. Just kind of a informational thing for you to think about.
Where was it last year?
Excuse me?
In relation to last year? You're saying 1.4 this year is your projection?
No, $1.4 million we use for maintenance for the entire town, for all the infrastructure and everything else. So like you said, dedicated out of our total budget is about $6.1 million out of a $7.5 million budget. Okay? Any further questions?
We're good. Question?
Just highway and paving stuff, I see this big spreadsheet.
Yes, oh, and I forgot to mention that. So also what we have given you too, as part of your packet, along with the parks maintenance and standards, is a list of paving. So you'll see a small list. That small list is what we can do with our existing Chapter 90. Okay, and if you look at the larger list of paving, you can see what was that at?
Well, that was a super wish list.
But you can see what we can do, obviously, with more money. And it's just like you said, informational. I know we presented this in a capital appropriation or plan.
This is a small snapshot of the backlog of paving work we have to do. And by small, I mean there's a bunch left out because we can't pave certain areas because we need to do infrastructure upgrades as well. So we can't pave this year and then do a water main in 2 years because that's been done in the
Yeah, it's not
past and
good
it doesn't
planning,
make
yeah.
sense, yeah.
And we can't afford to do all the water mains we have to, so that puts paving up the cycle.
And I'd like to point out too, the department did receive some grants this year. So we received a grant from the Mass DOT for $260,000 for a culvert replacement on Porter Road. We'll be starting hopefully this summer. We did receive a grant also for $140,000 for the water asset management plan. That is almost completed, but part of that grant's going to take a look at our total infrastructure when it comes to our sewer system and our stormwater system. That'll be paid out of this grant. So we're going to get all our underground utilities in a capital improvement plan, and they'll kind of be morphed all together into one as far as replacing a sewer main and then a water main and or storm drain, and then correlate that obviously with our pavement management system. So I think we're on a good track moving forward. So like you said, we're not paving streets and digging them up 2 years later, so we're doing a lot of work.
So sorry, I have another question there. So I'm unclear as to what is the proposal here. I see the Chapter 90 paving list, which is not much, and then the proposed wish list. So which one are you,
That
at?
i-
Are you
that is
asking for it
food-
all, or are we?
That is
are
food
we-
for thought. We'll,
Well,
like you said.
a couple meetings ago, I thought we were under the impression that you guys were gonna come back with something, some alternate funding proposal, whether it's bonding or short-term lending, to bite off a bigger chunk. We've delayed this for 2 years. To delay it again is not making it better. So I'm open to ideas. I just don't, so what is the idea?
So that would be adding to the capital projects.
Yes.
So when we go back and discuss capital again, that's when we can add additional funding if you want, and then we would go to the sources for that funding.
Right, and I thought the capital was suggesting $100,000, which was
I wasn't there.
insufficient when
Oh,
we're
correct.
recommending that it was more like $600,000 per year. And if we're gonna do an alternate funding source, and I believe, Sarah, you said not, that if you're gonna, like, if we're gonna take, say, 1.2 and tackle 2 years' worth to catch up a bit, and you were suggesting not doing bonding. So I guess that's what I'm waiting for, is what is the plan?
I think we're talking about the budgets tonight and not the capital projects. So when we go back, there will have to be a discussion, because there was a presentation on the capital projects, but there
We
wasn't
didn't-
serious discussion by the council
To
that
adopt
you
it.
want to cut something, or I know there was discussions about adding things. You needed to see the budget side and then put the two pieces together and say, okay, we're cutting this much out of the budget, we want to add to the capital. That's when we'll be able to do a hypothetical of how much you want. So, and that discussion of the funding would come under the capital side, not this side.
I just want to give you some information, just so you guys can see it in front of your face, what those differences are, Chapter 90 versus additional funding, just so
Yeah.
you guys can review that information.
And Chapter 90 is part of this budget. I mean, there's a page on Chapter 90, so you should know what that represents. You know,
So
how
Bruce,
much.
the Chapter 90 money with this list at the Parker Street, Prospect, and Pease. That's what we have for existing Chapter 90 money.
Yeah.
We're gonna get those projects done.
Those are the definites.
Those are the
for this
definite ones
year,
that are
'cause-
finished. What else we have to look at is something whole different on the capital piece later to figure out how we're gonna pay for anything else that we wanna do. But these are the definite, this small sheet,
Yes.
right, is the
That's-
definite ones?
Yes. You can see
And when
where,
we get the number balanced out, we'll try to pick something else off the list, the bigger
bigger
list.
list.
If there's money left over. We did get some addition, we got 20% more last year. So once we get the balance, we'll get the reimbursement back from the work we did last year and see what that number is, and then
Right.
we can adjust accordingly.
And the additional funding that we got, Chapter 90, what, we didn't get during the budget process, we got it like in October.
Yeah, it
So
was
we
late.
can't, it's not something we can plan on. If we're gonna do more, we have to figure out that we're gonna be paying for it somehow. And if we get a surprise of additional money, that's wonderful. If we don't bond as much, or however we're gonna
yeah,
do it.
and like I said, we're doing our best. We adopted the complete streets, so we're looking for tip money, so we want to do the whole North Main corridor, but that's a few years out. So like you said, we're doing our due diligence, looking for other funding sources where we can, but it's a slow process, unfortunately.
Who's responsible for those other funding sources and doing the research and trying to find, you are?
Well,
Both
myself
of
and
you?
Tom.
Yeah, so you come up with $400,000 basically this past year?
For the paving?
Those two projects you mentioned, the 200.
Oh, yes, yeah, yep. Yeah.
So that's good.
That was, yeah.
So we've actually came up with about 300,000, well, 310,000. We received a grant from Maya for $10,000 for a new shoring box, so we received about 310,000 in grant funding this
Okay,
year.
good work, yeah.
Thanks.
And then once the complete streets thing comes in, then we can start
Apply
trying
for
to pull
that.
from that one too, and
Mhm.
try to
Yeah.
look under every rock, I guess.
Yeah,
Yep.
We obviously have the work to be done, so
Keep
we just
applying.
need the money. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
Anything else?
I think that's good for now.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there was no discussion about this document, which has to do with.
Yeah, the parks,
Are we holding off on that?
the Parks Division standards, Parks Division maintenance standards and practice.
Absolutely not, that's Joe's thing.
And I'll just do a quick
Sure.
overview. This is just my first go at as far as developing a plan for all our fields and parks. I've come up with some preliminary numbers on the last page based on what I have seen so far. Obviously, I need to dig in deeper, but I know there was discussions with residents and everything else, so there is a cost associated at the end for your review if you guys decide to move forward in a discussion, okay?
And I can gladly add a little bit to that. So Bruce is working closely with the rec department and a group of residents who came to speak before us and are passionate about, helping improve the safety and the quality of the fields. And it's not just for youth sports. I mean, there are plenty of adults that use our fields as well. So in doing that, it was very eye-opening to understand just some of the basic metrics of how many people you have, what type of equipment you have, and just the sheer volume of acreage that needs to be done and maintained. So it's not a matter of do they want to improve the quality of the fields. It's a matter of just simple economics in terms
How are they going
of the
to?
resources that are available and the number of employees. And we get to a time of year like we do now when all the fields are technically supposed to be open, but they haven't been able to do anything because the fields have been wet. So, it's a matter of, this is good exercise because we're educating myself and we're also educating some of the other people that haven't gone through this process in the past to understand that it's not that they're just ignoring the stuff. It's just, the time of year. So we get some significant spikes in the spring and the fall. So we're trying to do everything we can to kind of come together, figure out what's needed, do a little something, because if we don't do a little something this year, then nothing's going to get affected until the fall of 2020, because we would be in the next budget cycle if we essentially missed this window. So, it was my request that give us a gut check of what you're seeing and where is the most critical, help to at least move the needle a little bit, because the residents are helping and they're getting involved, and it's not going to help if we can't put a shovel in the ground or do anything for essentially another, which would be another 15 or 16 months versus 3 or 4 months, where July 1st we could make a little bit of an impact and start doing it. So that was part of my request as well. So thank you for putting this together, because I know it took a lot of time.
Bruce, I would also say, we probably do more damage to our fields to try to jump on this early at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it has to be put on hold. We
And
certainly
that's
don't
the
want
thing,
to make them any
usually.
worse than they are.
Right, and it's usually, like he said, I think they started practices this past week, I believe. But then it comes to the table that, okay, we have games next week, now it's finally dried out. We don't have 10 guys that we can throw at it all at once. We still need to start the process moving forward and grooming, tilling the fields and everything else, and you can't just do that in a week.
Bruce, you gave me the number of acres that we have to maintain. Do you remember what that is?
169.25.
I knew it was a lot. I didn't think it was.
I actually took some time on the GIS system.
I just have me on that page, don't think I knew that. off the top.
I thought you were a genius.
Yeah.
So like he said, it was
That's a lot.
my first review of what we have and what we need. There's a lot more to do yet. But like I said, based on my initial findings, I think we have the right equipment. We have one piece of old equipment, but running the numbers based on the amount of hours they work during the day, the speed of the mower and everything else. So I was looking at it, I go, we have the enough equipment. We just got some old equipment that needs replacement. So it's basically bodies and funding to support those
And
things.
that's in that first list, that first box list where it's needed, whatever, right?
Right.
But that
And that-
increase that's listed right under that,
Yeah, see, and this,
Bruce?
you gotta keep in mind, this is preliminary. I threw some numbers in there in the beginning. It was just, I just was filling in some blanks. I need to go through this whole exercise, go back, share it with recreation, the committee, refine it again, so it's gonna take a few months to put this whole thing
But
together.
under your staffing piece though, right on page 3.
Yep. So our current staff?
Yeah, well, it says current staff is this,
Yes,
right, and then you have your.
needed,
whatever.
and that's,
The 387 would, in present day salary cost to the current annual staff expense. That's if you had your,
that's if it's based on the table below.
gotcha.
So, like I said, that's a cursory review. It just, that's if I need to hire I wanted to hire 5 people tomorrow,
Gotcha.
that's all.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're
Sorry
very
it took so
welcome.
long.
Thanks.
And you just ate up all of our. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah.
We put 5 minutes.
You got 5 minutes, Ron.
Talk fast. So the IT budget, since there was, it's the second page of.
155.
Yeah, 155? Yeah.
5.
Second page of the uses. At the top.
Okay. Everybody there? We're about 4 pages into the document. It's account
Right at the top.
155.
The first page that has, the second page that has like salary and non-salary split.
Yep.
All set?
I am. How do you want to get started? I don't have as many line items as Bruce had, so.
Want to talk about the salary increase?
Sure. So the IT department's responsible for, obviously, all the town departments as well as the school department. We do a lot more than just the computers and printers. We do, obviously, the network, the Wi-Fi, and we have 300 access points, 40 switches. Then we have, we do all the security cameras. We have about 250 security cameras from the schools to town buildings to intersections. Now we're pushing those out there. We also do like door access, so all the swipe cards. We do a lot of the installations and the maintenance of that stuff, as well as phones and the public safety radios. So it's a lot different than when I started, when it was just fixing computer hardware. To that point, the last time that we've added a full-time staff in IT was in 2003. So it's been a little bit of a growth since then. And the main position that we're adding, which is a big part of that salary increase, is help desk administrator. So in the org chart, you can see we have currently 2 tier 1 support positions and then 1 tier 2. This new position would be to have 2 tier 2 support. So we'd have basically 4 main support positions, 2 tier 1, 2 tier 2. Tier 2 can do tier 1 type of work, so start of the school year, that type of stuff, when it's a lot of the lower end support needs, all 4 of them can be dedicated to do that. The other additional increase is 2 summer seasonal positions. As Kathy can tell, the summers are one of our busiest times, going through getting all the technology ready for the next school year, on top of our the capital projects we try to get done. And there's also, I know they were talking about it with DPWs, is there's contractual increases, and it's really 2 years of contractual increases that are factored into that as well.
And this takes into account the school's plan to have you do additional work in the summer with all their
Yep.
1-for-1?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Does
it's,
that help you with the school year? Like when they do the 1-to-1 finally?
when
Or are you gonna need somebody else like after that to do?
we do have the one,
Or they're taking a technology teacher?
the high school has an integration specialist, and he does a good job taking care of like the tracking the laptop cards, that type of thing. The one full-time position would be an additional year-round position for us.
would that be used in the school, like capacity to help that school
Yep.
integration guy? or
School in
whatever, however
town.
that-
Yep, so we don't dedicate
Schools
staff
themselves.
specifically to schools or
Right.
town. We try to stay agile and, everybody sees everything and has the experience, so if there's a crisis anywhere, we can apply our whole staff to it and take care of it a lot faster.
And the school's also asking for an instructional technology specialist.
Yep,
in
for
addition
the
to-
elementary.
In addition to what they already have.
Yep, that would be a separate request, yep, on their end.
Right. So with your one full-time, two seasonal part-time, them adding a body, and then going to all you currently do, in which case you're understaffed, and then you're adding all those one-to-one needs and resources, you feel comfortable that you can get it all done?
I do, yep. We've been talking with the high school about implementing a student-led help desk. So myself and the high school instructional technology specialist are actually going out to Linfield in May. They have a student help desk, so the students take care of a lot of the base level technology stuff.
So will that be a class as well as, something they get credit for?
Yeah, like a
It
work
seems
study.
like an
So instead of a
awesome
work study, they would do that. And
opportunity for
the
them.
management would fall under the instructional technology specialist, I believe.
So
We haven't got that far yet, but.
do you all understand the technology specialist at the school level? It's very different than, it's not providing.
It's a totally different animal. It's
Yeah.
much more, it's totally instructional. Right now, the individual that you have is adept at a lot of these minor interventions that can be done, but when you hire, that's not necessarily the other skill set the interventionist would necessarily have, so.
Yeah, like that's why the high school one, he's good. with
And he's been in
technology
the
stuff.
district for many years.
Yeah.
Right.
And but he does like the cart tracking, the like resetting passwords and stuff that's a little less technical, but takes a little bit of load off of us.
But most of the responsibility for that position is teaching teachers.
Yep.
How to
and
best use
students how to use
technology.
technology.
And.
Maximizing our
In
investment.
their, right, in lesson planning and.
Yep.
for
But that's
student-
not where the IT department is.
Right.
Correct.
Right, you don't have any concerns over those 8-week summer positions, like finding somebody qualified? Because it's only for an 8-week window?
I'm looking more for like a high school position or a college student, that type of.
Student kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah, it's a minimum, I factor in minimum wage that I think that's $12 an hour for the summer.
gotcha.
It'd be great if you can get intern positions, some of the local colleges.
Yeah.
Paid internship is huge.
Yeah,
Yep.
great for them.
So I
too.
think, I won't say we can abuse them, but we could work.
Don't say it out loud, anyway.
Well, yeah, let's not say that on camera.
They're getting a valuable
There you go.
expertise in their field.
A lot of good experience.
Right.
Brian, again, would you just remind us of the number of machines that you would have online if the one-to-one initiative
So,
goes full tilt?
Right now, including our public access, we do about 2,800 devices a day. Our side is probably, we have about 2,000 Chromebooks. And then we have 400 iPads. Then we have Windows computers, and we have 230 teacher Macs.
And the town side.
And then the
Yeah.
whole town side.
Hello.
Police cars, the fire trucks, the ambulance, it's all, every single one has devices in it, and cell modems now and all that stuff. Everybody's got to stay
Complicated
connected.
business.
It is a complicated business.
Any other questions?
On the salary side? So on the expense side, some of the larger factors, our maintenance contracts, we've been working with Sarah and Denise consolidating technology expenses from other departments into IT. A couple of the big dollar item ones were Vision, which is the assessor software. It was factored in the assessor's budget. That was transferred in. We also transferred in a couple from the police department, some of the ones that aren't reimbursable under the state 911 grant. So we moved those under IT to have more of a full encompassing cost of what technology is for the town of East Long Meadow, which is just under 1.5% of the total budget is for IT.
So
So just a neutral move, you took it from one
It is.
department, put it in.
to really reflect the IT costs rather than have me have a little pocket of IT in my budget and, you know, Dawn have some, and we're folding them into the IT budget to
Makes sense.
give a more accurate picture of that.
And some of the, like, we didn't move the ambulance software because, you know, the ambulance fund can take care of that. There was a couple other user fees for the police department that we can get reimbursed for that stayed over there too.
A question, Ryan, this may be a question for Diane, but the Vision software, is that the new assessor software? The newest
It's
one that we
it's
purchased?
the updated version. So we updated
That
from.
was like from last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't we update that last year?
Yep, we updated, actually, I think we just went live too, right?
Yeah, last week?
The expenditure though was from last,
Yeah.
there was like.
Well, we
14
updated to
Right, I
the,
remember that from last.
a different database
But-
engine, and we also went cloud-based
Right.
for their software, to the cloud.
Wow.
Baby steps, you know?
Exciting.
All right, you finished in 10 minutes, so you're good.
One of the other big items under maintenance contracts is coming into licensing compliance with Gmail. And we have a lot more users on the town side than we did originally, so now we gotta pay the Google.
Pay the Google.
Is it worth getting a separate email account, you know?
So, one of the reasons we went with the cloud with Gmail on the town and the school side is we have one domain name everyone uses, eastlongmeadowmay.gov, for uniformity, and they provide a lot better service. We hosted our own email for probably the first 15 years I was here, and you know, when I first started, email could go down for half a day and the phone wouldn't ring. But towards the end, there was just a little performance blip, and then the phone started ringing. And it's really such a critical tool nowadays. You got to have it cloud hosted. And Gmail's actually cheaper than if we went with like an Outlook solution.
Ain't easier.
And another one too, our antivirus. 3 years ago, we got a 3-year contract. So now we got to pay for it again.
It's all parts of doing business.
It's true.
Not that it's part of this budget, but where are we with the human resource software?
We're in a torture process, actually.
Okay, fair answer.
We have been looking at the whole process for, gosh, since before, when Sarah was pregnant, before she went out on maternity leave.
Which time?
So the analysis that we did and the RFP, well, it wasn't an RFP, what was it called?
Assessment.
No,
It was a request for services using Combis.
so we went through Combis, we got how many, 6 or 7? And they were all over the place and very difficult for us to decipher what it is that we were actually asking for at that point, because they were giving us what they wanted and
Not
what they
what we
thought,
wanted.
and we didn't know if it was going to fit the bill. We have narrowed it to 2 vendors at this point, and I think we're pretty close to 1 vendor, but we now need to make sure that both the school and the town side are comfortable with what the application is and how it's all going to come together. We've been doing that for the last month. We're trying to get the school comfortable with a particular issue that they have. We had to put it on hold to do this budget production the last few weeks to just make sure that we're concentrating on this. But I've been getting calls from one of the vendors. We got an email today, and they're anxious to get us on board. We're very anxious to do it. It's a matter of how we're going to get everybody comfortable with what the whole solution is going to be. But we're close to, I don't remember who asked the question.
I did.
So we're close to where we need to be to get it done, but there are still some very serious frowns in the room when we talk about it, so.
Trying to cultivate the full buy-in everybody, so.
It's a big change. It's a real big change for the personnel that are used to doing payroll, and some of it isn't under my or Ryan's or Sarah's control. It's the school side, so, you know, we need to be sensitive that if you hit people over the head and make them come, then you don't have the cooperation, and this is really a very critical piece of our business, that if we don't have the cooperation, the whole thing could, you know, really be disastrous. You're talking about people's payroll and, you know, their paychecks, their accrued times, and to get all of that in and get it cooperatively done is really key. So it's been a collaborative process, but there have been some bumps in the road for sure.
Thank you.
Will that also fall under your department?
Probably.
The software itself will, but mostly it will be finance, because it's payroll, and human resources will have a piece that, you know, onboarding people and all of that, so.
Yeah, we just make it work.
I was going to say, IT is critical in all of them, because he
Just wondering what-
plugs the pieces in.
Yeah, just wondering where the budget will,
Yeah.
Yeah.
line item.
I mean,
will
it's
reside.
the annual support will fall under.
Oh, yes,
IT.
and it's projected to be a big number.
It is. Any questions?
Good.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Record time,
Not too bad. Made it
concise.
Wow, you made up, it was like me trying to get here. You speed a little and you make it work. So I think since we have both the assessor and the treasurer collector here, maybe we do that piece of the finance rather than the most miscellaneous other pieces that all fall under finance. Can I do that?
enough.
So those are, what numbers, Sarah, for them to
So
find?
we're going to talk about Department 141 and 145, so it's the first page.
So they're on the first page of uses?
Yes. So there's some information coming your way. But as it is, we'll start off. So we're going to talk first about the Collector Treasurer Department, Department 145. So you will see that the salary has a 16.6% increase. And that is a contractual increase. So as we had discussed earlier with some of the other departments, it's essentially 2 years' worth of raises in there. But there is also the request in there of one of our positions we have as a part-time position. It is currently a 19-hour-a-week position, and we are requesting for that position to become full-time, 37 and a half hours a week. We did put this request before the town council last year, and due to constraints in the budget, it was unable to be funded. We are reapplying for that this year. And would you like to explain the packet that they're getting?
Of course. So the packet that has the paperclip, that one has most of the information regarding the actual department salary and the department increases. And the top one is in regards to the request of the part-time person becoming full-time. A couple of major reasons. Number one, recently, due to moves within the town hall and trying to save on construction costs, the mail has now become part of the collector's office, which takes up about 5 to 15 hours a week extra. So we want to, give that to the part-time person. Also, recently, we've trained the part-time person in putting all the fines and violations into Munis. This way, if it's a better tracking device, when we are ready in the third quarter of the real estate billing cycle, if that person has not paid their fines or violations, like the building fines or the health fines, we can then lean it to the real estate taxes. It's a much easier way to track the fines. It's easier to get our money from those violations. Also, best practice, and Massachusetts Collector Treasurers Association highly recommends that the assistant treasurer should not wait at the counter. They should be handling department turnovers. They should be the final one to balance, the final person to bring money to the bank. And also, we have approximately 75 accounts to balance regarding bank accounts, trust funds, investments. So that's why we like to take him off the counter. And also, by doing that, if we completely took him away from the counter, we'd only be down to 2.5 people to serve the residents. And since the change in the department split up and we've had less people at the counter, we have heard residents say, why do we have to wait? Or you're not picking up the phone fast enough, and that, of that nature. So that's why I'm requesting that. Any questions about that one?
So, Kathy, just a quick question here. So going on the sheet that you gave us earlier, Sarah, on the positions, so the collector, treasurer, administrative assistant going to full-time, then FY '20 would be an additional $17,865 in salary. So-
Yes.
So is that just doubling? Is that how much the part-time position currently is?
No, the current position is 18,000 and change,
Okay.
so just shy of it.
And then projecting benefits out, assuming
Assuming
they
a
accept
family.
benefits,
plan.
family plan,
Yep.
worst-case scenario. that
These
is
are all worst-case scenarios
worst
for the benefits.
Case scenario.
Mm-hmm,
And
that's
you can't,
correct.
you're right, and you don't know if they are gonna elect or not elect, you can't ask that, so that's fine.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a general sense of what that total compensation is. So in FY '21, you'll realize the full salary plus potential benefits. That's your liability.
Right, the chart there is showing just what the increase, because currently the position is a part-time,
Sure.
so I felt it would be double counting to include what that individual currently makes, because no matter whether this position gets approved or not, we still have the part-time position. It's not that we would be eliminating that person. We're hoping to make that person's job full-time.
Okay. And you feel strongly that the workload is there to justify?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there not a way to do it with a swap person?
No, we've had a swap person come in when we have department staff meetings, things like that, on a small basis, but we can't have that person in all the time. And then there's certain aspects of the position that that person just would not be
Can't do.
able to do.
Just checking.
Yeah.
So you do have a swap person that comes in sometimes.
Sometimes like to answer phones and help out with filing and stuff like that, in regards to collecting cash and taking credit cards.
Yeah,
It's kind of,
yeah, you can't really do
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. But the current person who is doing the part-time position, she is nonstop right now between answering the phones, the counter. Dawn's department has also taught her how to post revenue batches to essentially be a backup for the other, the collector's assistant and the assistant collector to help with posting and processing and all of those kinds of things. So this position has really, the person there is, we're very lucky. She picks up on things very fast, is very organized, so that has made a huge difference. But when she's not there, then what do we do? This person also is the one who mails out the warrants. So we process 300 to 400 checks per week. In the accounts payable process, accounts payable warrant process. This person manually stuffs all those, matches them up with the receipts to make sure that we have everything, physically stuffs them all, and has to mail them and release them all. So that takes up a significant amount of time. Now, in, say, June, those numbers are significantly higher as to how much that we're doing. So different times a year, we have a lot more. As well as then, you'll see in the description here, the schedule for real estate, motor vehicle taxes, all of those, they don't coincide with each other, it's spread out. So it's not like we would just say, oh, just during a busy time of year. The busy time of year is all year long, based on whatever goes out. Water and sewer, for instance, all of the collection for that is done in the collector treasurer's department. We have 6 districts, and they all have staggered billing periods. How many?
It's about 6,000 water and sewer bills every quarter.
So it's a quarter for them, not on a calendar quarter. So they're constantly coming in. So like I said, it's constantly busy. We have tried to make it work with what we currently have. Due to segregation of duties in Mass General Law, the accounting department cannot wait on the counter and answer, take payments because we are the record keeper, so it would be a conflict. And that's a similar reason to why the assistant treasurer really should not be accepting the payments. But when our part-time person goes home, then if we have a line out the door, the assistant treasurer does step up and assist with that. But really, that's frowned upon in the Mass Treasurer Collectors Association. Anything else?
I think that's it, unless you had any more questions about that spot.
This is a union position. It would not be changing the grade or step or anything of that nature.
Well, this employee also serves as a pretty good safety net, right? In case, what about somebody,
Going on
being ill or
maternity?
leave of absence for whatever reason, right?
Right, and we've run into that, for example, in the summertime.
Not to point fingers.
Well, no offense taken.
In the summertime, we have the MACTA school. It's the Massachusetts Collector Treasurer Association. And myself, the assistant treasurer, and the assistant collector go, leaves us down to 2 people. So then I'd have to at least have like a SWAT person come to answer the phones or what have you. But it does cause a conflict. And I have 3 people that have been there for a lengthy period of time, so they have a lot of vacation time,
A lot of time
comp
off.
time built up.
Broken bones.
Things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You will see, what I just had handed out was a copy of the Finance Department's org chart. I thought that it would be important for you to see what falls underneath finance and how all of that works. So you can see the Director of Municipal Finance and Town Accountant, which is myself. And then I have the Director of Assessing, the Collector, Treasurer, and the Accounting Department itself. And so you can see everybody's roles there. Now, I also attached a second sheet, which is the Finance Department Responsibility Chart. I think that it's sometimes easy to just say finance, but not really understand what that means that we do every day. And so this is a high-level snapshot of the responsibilities that fall underneath the Assessing Department, the Collectors, Treasurer's Department, and the Accounting Department. I'd like you to take some time to read through this to get a better understanding as to why we are saying we need the help we need, because we are responsible for all of these areas. Some of the highlights are approximately 80 bank accounts and investments. We have 8,000 general ledger accounts that we reconcile and are responsible for, which contain at June 30th $73 million, which includes both our operating budget as well as our trusts, enterprise funds, scholarships, all of those. We reconciled the bank accounts, which I had said were the 80 bank accounts, but it's approximately $24 million in a given month. That's how much was in there at June 30th. Then we also do 7,000 purchase orders per year. So we have to review all those requisitions, approve them, convert them, make sure they're properly coded, process them, liquidate them. We also assist departments with the RFQ contract management. We process payroll. So the town side payroll is approximately 400 plus employees. And we have to record their time, whether it's biweekly, there's some quarterly stipends, some monthly stipends, such as yourselves, as well as we process the payroll for everyone, school and town, which is just over 1,000 people in a given year. So as you can imagine, if they are weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and quarterly, that's a lot of transactions in a given year. And another thing that we are responsible for is in the accounts payable, we have 15,000 vendors, which we are responsible to have up-to-date W-9s on every vendor. We are responsible for maintaining any changes with those vendor files, and we processed last year 16,000 invoices. So the amount of transactions and the amount of responsibilities amongst our finance department is very, very large, as well as we have federal, state, and I'll call them vendor-specific reporting that we have to do. So we have financial statement audit, a single audit, which is our audit of all of our federal funds that we receive in grants. We are responsible for providing information for the pension, for the Hampden County Retirement. We have to contribute for their audit, as well as our OPEB actuarial report, as well as all of the payroll reporting, the vendor things such as any deductions that we have. We have to communicate with that vendor to make sure that what we are sending to them reconciles with what they have. So if you have a retirement account or an OBRA account, we do all of those reconciliations. Our department is also responsible, the assessing department works closely with the accounting department, and together we work to setting the tax rate and completing all of the required reports, which I last counted was approximately 20 reports in order to get that tax rate set. We do the Schedule A, which is approximately 15 reports, as well as other reports on, say, the CPC, the historical and cultural. So there are a lot of agencies that we account to, such as yourselves, but also outside agencies and vendors. Our department is extremely busy all the time. There is really no downtime, but this is why that we are requesting for the Treasurer Collectors Department to go from a part-time to a full-time, as well as you will see in the accounting section that I am requesting for a purchasing manager in order to help with all of this. The procurement laws are very specific and a lot of rules, and so it's very hard to manage all of the rest of this and do the procurement all at the same time. If you were looking at the budgets, the town accountant budget, the increase is just that one full-time position for the procurement manager. This is a position that Long Meadow has, because they have a very, very similar structure to us and similar budget size and everything. And their procurement manager really does all of the RFP, RFQ process, makes it easy for departments. This will assist all of our departments that currently have to do it. When you have a small department, I'm going to pick on the assessor for a moment. We did the RFP for the valuation services last year. This is not something typical that that department does, so that department therefore worked with me, and we put that together. But it's a daunting task for a department. Being able to have a dedicated procurement manager who can work with assisting every department with being able to do that, including somebody like DPW, who with all their capital projects, they do a lot of requests, and making sure that we are staying compliant, as well as assisting all of these departments to get the best product that we can for the best rate while still being compliant. The rest of the town accountant budget really isn't that exciting. And the assessing department's budget, you will see that they have a small increase of 2.4%, which is just contractual. We had an employee that was at a higher step that left, so the offset of the salary increases with that new person coming in at a lower step has made the total percentage a bit smaller.
So Sarah, you've jumped from her budget to now her budget to her budget. You need to
Sorry.
give them a little bit of a break. First of all, tell them the number of the budget, and maybe Diane could talk to the assessors.
Yeah, can you start over?
Well, I have less than 15 minutes.
She went to budget 135,
I
which is her
was-
budget.
We said that.
I was quickly following. Okay.
Well, a lot of this I know that you're going to read and then come back with questions. I don't expect all of you to be speed readers and have read everything that's been provided to you at this point.
I mean, for me, I've already reviewed a lot of this, so I'm just appreciate the level of detail for the collector treasurer going from part-time to full-time. I'm clear on that. I'm not 100% clear on what the procurement manager is going to add. That's so critical, because it's a pretty significant amount of money. It's a much higher salary line item. So, I mean, I could use a little bit more detail there.
Sure, I will provide the job description that I've written and some comparables, and I will provide that for the whole council.
So who essentially does that function today?
Me.
She does the accounting, she does the
By default, you
management
procurement person forever.
and the procurement,
Yes,
so.
Okay.
and internal audit.
So in reallocating your time
Yes,
to do other mission-critical things,
yes.
I'm sure there are mission-critical things that you probably should be doing. So what percentage of your time is spent on that task?
Currently, depends on the time of year. So it can be 15%, can be a little bit more, can be a little bit less. There are some areas of it that are actually pushed to the departments because I simply don't have the time. So right now I've had 4 RFPs sitting on my desk for about 6 months because I don't have the time to be able to do the formal RFP process, to finish doing the requests, and to put all those out to bid.
So Sarah did get the procurement, what is it?
Certification,
License
yep.
Certification. And in getting that certification, we both realized that it's a much bigger process in the state of Massachusetts, the requirements from the state level, than you would think.
Is it not a conflict to be the procurement person and the auditor at the same time? Isn't that like a little bit?
Well, so
Or is it, I guess is my question.
Well, the internal audit is that we're checking all of the accounts and whatnot. Yes, I
Aren't
could
you
not.
auditing what we purchased too? You know, the RFP, like, isn't that part of it?
So, right, so I should, if I then am auditing myself, then that would be ridiculous.
Well, that's my point.
But
That's
as,
sort of what I'm driving at.
That would be
right?
really wrong.
so right
You're
now,
leading the witness.
I'm sorry.
right now, right now, I don't audit my own procurement because I should have followed it the first time.
Right.
And I don't, it's not like I
Whatever,
have
I mean-
staff that can then go back and take a look at it at this point. But what I can do is I do look at the procurement of the other departments, and in that area, then I can look. So if I had a procurement manager, then I could audit all of it. I could
Right.
review all of the areas. Right now, I'm limited because, yes, I can't audit myself.
Right. My point. Thank you. That's all I really
No,
was trying to get.
no problem. No problem.
And actually, under your procurement duties, she's implemented Combis,
Combis.
which has, some of the comparisons for an ink cartridge are just unbelievable, or just copier paper went from, I don't remember, it was like $7 to $1.50 or something. Some of the things are ridiculously cost saving. So procurement is a big deal here. In the state of Massachusetts, it's regulated, and it can bring better quality
Yeah,
for
so-
certain.
Combis has enabled us to have significant savings, as well as to ensure that all of the products purchased through there have met the state procurement laws, which is great, because then that's one less thing for me to have to check. But another aspect of it has been rolling it out to all the departments and the other types of purchases that don't necessarily fall under there. So I need help.
Question, in the assessors, in the notes you mentioned you moved 53,000 for evaluation services to separate fund. Where's the separate fund, and where's it show up?
If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the 7th page down, if you count that page as page 1, count down. The top caption of it says other financing uses, and you can see capital projects, stabilization fund, OPEB. Do you see that area? Below that, in the middle, it says valuation services fund. It's right there. So it nets to 0 overall for the operating budget. It was no change. It's the exact same request
Right.
amount as last year. but it's separated out. The reason being, Dan, would you like to explain that?
Absolutely. So my assessing budget falls on a fiscal year, but revaluation services do not fall July 1 through June 30th. So we might be getting ready to be reviewing sales in July, but we still have funding left over from what we budgeted in the prior fiscal year. This is going back to the way our former form of government, where we had warrant articles, where we would appropriate a certain amount of money, and that amount of money would take you through the actual service that was budgeted for, as opposed to putting it into our budget, and on June 30th, if you had $10,000 left over because you didn't get to the next step, it went back to the general fund, and we would just reappropriate in the next year. So every year we've been appropriating $53,000 to cover the services, but by putting it into a special fund such as this, we do not have to worry about if we didn't finish our cyclical inspections by June 30th, we lost that money and we had to reappropriate all over again. So we think it's going to enable us to get more work done at the times that we need to have it done, as opposed to working in an exact fiscal year period.
The other benefit, which if you could explain to them, is when we need to do the revalues.
So some years we do a interim adjustment and it does not cost as much, and then now it's every 5th year we have to do a full recertification, and that takes a lot more time, effort, and unfortunately dollars. It's a larger project, so this way at $53,000, if we're only using 25 one year, we're remaining, having a remaining balance, so then the next year when we do it, we always will have enough money. We won't have to say, oh, we need $100,000 this year to complete all of the services.
So, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had a quick question. The cash policy, it seems to cause a lot of extra foot traffic, anywhere from 30 to 60 extra transaction a week based on your numbers. How's that working? Is that something we need to revisit, or is there some ways we can reduce that number of foot traffic? Are there strategies?
You can go.
So it has increased the traffic for sure, and that's another one that's on my list too,
Right,
for
so-
hiring the part-time person to full-time. It has increased. We are handling it well. Residents meaning, seem to have gotten used to it. And certain times of the year are busier than others. However, it has increased. I think the policy's working fine. Like I said, residents seem to be getting the hang of it and seem to have accepted it. We give them alternatives and we explain to them other ways to pay. We do have online. They can use their online bill pay through their bank if they choose. So we do give them all their options, but some people choose to only pay cash, which is by their right, and it's fine, and it seems to be working, like I said. I personally think it is. I haven't heard any, when it first started, we got a little pushback, but now that it's been in place for about a year, everybody seems to accept it and it seems to be fine
Can
with
they do
it.
the burn permits online too?
No, that's,
Is there a way we can do it?
I believe Paul at one point was talking to another community about looking into having that available. I don't know how far he got with that.
But one of the things that we'd like this part-time to full-time position is to be able to take the burning permits and do it all at the collector's office, so then you're not having to then drive
drive
back
to the fire
over there.
department or
And the
whatever.
same thing with dump stickers, rather than have the resident go upstairs to DPW, find out that they want to pay cash, walk
Go
back
downstairs,
down,
go back
to
up.
go back up, if they didn't see the sign before they went up the stairs, but to be able to essentially do one-stop shopping in the collector's office. But from a internal audit control standpoint, I love the no cash policy in the other departments. It makes things a lot easier at year end or during the year when I would do my random check and cash policy and just show up and count. It makes things much cleaner,
It's more secure as well.
much more
Is that
secure.
by
You
the
know-
rec as well?
Yes. Yes, it does.
A lot of the rec has gone to online payment. They
Yep.
really are pushing that a lot. And it was bumpy at first, but it just seems to not be as big a deal anymore.
Right.
They've really figured it out.
A lot of
Good
communities have gone that way.
adapted to change.
And
In some places.
some of the internal weaknesses that we had previously in many areas have been resolved as a result. Yes. As a result of having cash in departments that maybe wasn't as secure as it should have been and things like that, has really been greatly reduced by having the no cash policy. And then in the few areas where there is cash, so for example, the Council on Aging, they do still, you can come in and take your yoga class for $2, and we're not gonna have you charge a credit card for the $2 for your
Or
yoga
come back and
class.
forth.
Or for your meal.
Lunch, yeah.
Those ones we did, but it's also catering to the generation. That generation is much more used to having cash on them versus the younger generation, which is more used to an electronic method, so.
Or if you have teenage kids, you don't carry cash on
But you don't have
They're
it.
always like this.
Because they want it.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, through Don, you added a recommendation.
Oh, the Venmo?
Yeah, I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
So-
Worth exploring.
We looked into that.
Yeah.
It's not really something that would be appropriate as a vendor payment. It's more meant for person to person.
What about buying mugs and things of that nature? Maybe run an account just specifically for the 120, that we're talking about the 120, for viewers, the East Long Meadow 125 event, where they're trying to sell coins, they're trying to sell beer steins and mugs and so forth, and just have a specific account just for that. Because that's also going to be taxing people bringing cash in, to then going to the town manager's office to buy an ornament, or buy a mug, or buy whatever. This could streamline and just have that specific to that, call it a EL 125 account, maybe use it to, Premier Source or someone like that.
I spoke with Unibank, who is currently our online bill payer that we use through the town, and I had a couple questions about Venmo because I had personally never heard about it. And she strongly recommends that it's really, truly only for person to person. It shouldn't be used in like a municipality or as a merchant.
I'm curious the reasoning why.
So do you go to a restaurant and you pay with
No,
Venmo?
because
So-
Venmo is actually, I
She-
take money and send it to you,
Yeah.
and then
It's your
you,
account.
it's your checking, it's whatever account you give me. So
Look
like
at
if
you
you're on a
guys.
Venmo account, it's hooked to your bank account. So I can send you
We
money
have
through
teenagers.
Venmo. I do it, I send a lot of money to
I don't
Boston
think
by
you can
Venmo.
sign up as a business.
Yeah,
Right.
I
and
don't think you
the,
can.
I was just thinking maybe
So then a person would
organization,
have to have,
Right.
the
An
EL
account.
125.
the example she used is, let's say you
it has
have
to be an
your,
individual.
let's say you're roommates with somebody, and like, he or she owed you half of the
Mortgage.
water bill or half of the rent. So instead of handing over the check to that person who's doing the actual payment for the rent, they can say, oh, I'll send it to you through the Venmo. So that's the example they use. That's the type of transaction. It's generally person to person, or
It's
if you
always
go out
like when my
to
daughter needs
dinner.
money, she's like, can you
you
Venmo me
split it.
$75? Okay, here you go. And
So
then
it's
it's in her
personal.
account
When it goes-
immediately.
It's not a
When it goes
merchant.
into
So
your,
the 125th is not a person.
it's not a person, and our understanding is that when those transactions would come in, there would be no identifier with them either as
You
to
don't know
what they
what
were
they're
for.
sending you money
Right.
for.
And the couple examples that I've seen, the notes, yes, you do have to put a comment, but it's generally an emoji. And so that really wouldn't work too great
You
with,
send a mug emoji?
Yeah,
That's what I wanted, a mug.
Yeah.
That's a good
Mug
point,
emoji.
because when
Yeah.
I look at my bank statements month to month, it doesn't give me any detail, it just says Venmo and the
Oh,
amount.
really?
and the
Right,
date.
and-
So there's no, it doesn't tell me who it was sent to, or for what
The Venmo
purpose.
will
So
tell
even
you
if
who
you do
sent
put
it.
in notes,
Yeah.
which I
But
have,
your
Right.
bank
it
account
won't
doesn't.
actually show the notes on the reconciliation, that would be a disaster.
so yeah,
that
to
would
try
be
to
a-
manage that and say, okay,
Yeah.
I think I've sold whatever, 10 t-shirts, 15 mugs and whatever, I should have $200 and I have 195. Now, how do I figure that out?
Yeah.
Where I'm missing, which
All
is
those
one
people on
wrong?
the
was it?
Venmo money list.
That was worth the shot. I mean,
No.
we should look
It
at
was a
other
great
options.
idea to
Definitely.
think outside of the box.
Right.
Yeah, because,
Right.
I was just
Yeah, you learn
talking
something.
to, Marge, and the policy of somebody coming in and says, you know, if you're asking, you know, people don't carry checks, especially a lot of people under 35. They're not walking around with a checkbook with them, and they want to come in and get these cool, you know, 125 mugs or ornaments or coffee cups, and they're like, you take a credit card. Will you take a credit card at the town hall?
Yes, down
Yeah.
the hall.
Yes, we can
Yeah.
take credit cards. And
Okay,
that's-
again, so, but they're also coming in, so the product is at the town manager's office. So they have to now go to another line.
Well, it's no different than a burn permit or a dump pass right now.
That's why I was trying to find a way to streamline it, to reduce the 60 extra, up to 60 extra transactions. If there's other strategies out there we can look at. Obviously Venmo won't work because of the
Well,
accounting.
it's not gonna work in their
that-
office anyway, because they're gonna.
Unless they have,
inherit all those
unless
other things.
you guys carry the mugs, and they go in to get them
If
from
we
you.
have a full-time person, no problem.
That was my point. All that traffic's going to you anyway, right?
Exactly.
The
I was gonna
60
say the 60 extra,
60 extra
whether
people are only going there.
whether they
We're actually
come-
creating
yeah.
60 extra
transactions.
somewhere else and then
And then
there,
they still end
Yeah.
up there.
right now, right? Because they're gonna walk into
Is it
whatever,
too- yeah.
DPW, they walk into, or they gotta go to the fire department or whatever, plus you get the, that
Correct.
same 60 transactions are going somewhere else,
But still end up in the
but still
finance
end up there.
department.
All this discussion is leading me to want to go in tomorrow and buy a mug.
I'm gonna buy one.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna buy two.
Don't go to
They
the
haven't been
tax.
printed, you can do order
Yeah, I'm
forms,
over
right?
some money,
You can do
like,
order
I'm-
forms.
How much you need? I don't know how much they are yet. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Then we can be like the Today Show, we'll just keep our mugs out.
Put it up there.
Everybody's got a 120
Are there any other questions at
on
this
those
point?
departments.
I just have one question. When people do come in and pay with a credit card,
Mm-hmm.
are they essentially paying more, or is the town taking a hit for the,
So what happens is with Unibank is there's a certain set rate. So if you're using a Visa debit card, it's a flat rate of $3.95 no matter what the charge. So if you're charging $5 or if you're charging $2,000,
Because
it's
it's a debit
$3.95.
card.
Right, and we don't get that fee. That fee goes to Unibank and then Unibank disperses it back to the Visas or the MasterCards of the world. That's their fee. Because we're not selling anything, it's a real estate tax, we're a municipality, we can't eat those charges. So where if you went Kohl's kind of works it into the price of you buying, a blouse or pants or what have you. So then for real true credit cards, non-Visa debit cards, a true credit card, there's a floating scale. So if it's under $99, I believe it is, it's $2.50. Then it's like $5. If that goes up to, I want to say, maybe $250. I can't envision the chart in front of my head right now, but there's a floating scale. So for every level of the amount that you want to actually charge, there's a different fee. And we tell the person flat out right when they tell us, like if they say, I want to charge my $2,000 real estate bill, we look at the floating scale and we say, okay, the convenience fee is this much. Are you okay with that?
that's
So-
where I was going.
Yeah, they
Who's-
know.
Who's taking a hit for
It's
it?
the-
Because
So
somebody-
the
somebody
resident.
is.
The resident.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
resident is paying.
And even if they pay it online, it also tells them before they hit the final yes, accept, it tells them what the extra charge is.
But again, they have a choice.
They do.
They don't have to use
They
the credit
do.
card.
And if they-
different credit cards, companies charge different amounts. And
Right.
I don't know how many different cards you
Right. And if they-
accept, but my point was basically who's paying for the credit card
Right.
transaction.
And if,
So-
sorry,
It's for their
if,
convenience.
if it's ACH, like if, let's say, it's a resident that can't make it to town hall, they can call us, and some residents have given us their ACH information, meaning their bank account information over the phone. We take their routing number, their bank account number, and it's 25 cents. So there's always that option, and it's less expensive than mailing it. You don't have to pay for the envelope, you don't have to pay for the stamp. So we have had that available as well. And even if they want to do it from home, they can do ACH, and it's still the 25 cents. So that's available as well.
And many credit cards offer rewards programs. And so a lot of people then weigh out how much am I going to get in rewards versus that convenience fee. So for many people, especially when it's that flat $3.95,
Right.
Then they say, hey, I'm going to get $20 in rewards. It's well worth it. And so then that's why they choose to do that. But it's not a fee that we keep or benefit. We don't get to set it or anything of that nature.
Right. And we
And
do,
what,
like,
what percentage, I mean, I know this is a tough question, but when people come in and pay their taxes, can you, accepting them, and you, both, all of you who have worked there as long as you have, how many people are actually, is it 25% of the residents, or 50%?
Not for real estate. The most transactions we get for credit cards are, believe it or not, the excise bills. I can do a summary.
Excise, are you
Yep,
saying?
for the car taxes,
Right.
the excise bills. I can get a summary for you if you want.
It's really not that important.
Okay.
I was just wondering, real estate taxes, that's probably the largest bill.
Right, and that's
that
the
you would
least, believe it or not, with the
encumber?
credit card. The most one is excise, the dump stickers. We have a lot of people that come and buy the dump stickers through credit
Yeah.
card. The water and sewer bills, but that's most of it. We do have some real estate taxes paid, but not very many. A lot of the people that do use the credit card for real estate are like what Sarah said, and they'll tell us that, "Well, I get flight rewards, or I get these rewards,"
that's
so
up to
it
them,
doesn't, you
right?
know,
That's
and
their choice.
hey, if it works for them, you know, whatever,
As long as, you know.
whatever you want to do, you know, so, but yeah.
So we're not taking a hit for it?
No,
that's all.
no, and
That was my real.
We're, the whole department is very well trained to make sure we always tell them beforehand, because we don't want anybody to say, whoa, 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 what did you do? So we always make sure that everybody's well aware, it'll cost this much if you do choose to go that method, so.
Do we have an explanation of all those options online?
We do, and a couple of times I sent a stuffer inside the real estate bill, having all the different options of payments for residents as
So
well.
they can find out before they even come in?
Yes.
In I believe in the packet that Dawn handed out to you, just one last thing for you to just read in your, spare time for fun, is about the lockbox. Dawn had changed vendors, and we are doing wonderful with it. It's a significant improvement. We like the process and working with the company a lot better, but also we are actually making money instead of it costing us money to have the lockbox service.
I was
So-
looking at that sheet you had where it was, and they're costing us money for a lockbox, and I was trying to figure out what's the sense of a lockbox. It's costing
Exactly,
us
so
money.
we switched vendors and now they're paying us, which is wonderful. So, just wanted to highlight that that happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, what do we have now?
So let me
Thank
just
you.
say
Denise.
that Joe's prediction is kind of
Out the
shot.
window.
And what?
Your prediction is kind of shot for 7 o'clock,
Yes,
because
and-
we're on
We're going to
6:15
town
and
clerk.
we're on 48.
Yeah.
So it would be the town clerk. And clerk of
Okay.
the council.
Mr. Florence.
Every time you get 10 minutes.
Talk fast. So your budget number is one of the early ones. What's the budget number?
Yeah, for the first one, is the town
160.
council, it's you guys,
111.
111.
111.
Right at the top.
Yeah. And the salaries are even, because your stipends are your stipends. That's going to be the same that was voted on when you first came, and it's the same stipend that's now. The non-salary has gone down a little bit. We had budgeted money for training and travel for the MMA conference the last couple of years, and the participation's been less, so we took money out of the training. So that's why you see a negative amount. The expenses going down. The next one is the town council and clerk. That's 160, so it's the next page.
Next page.
And the increase for the salary is contractual increase for the current employees, and then a request for one part-time position for, say, 19 hours. And we had put something in the budget last year, and again, due to the budget constraints, it came out. And in your packs, I gave you some backup of why we need that person. You know, next year is going to be a challenging year with the election coming up. There's going to be a lot of, say, increase in voter registration to just overall questions. It's going to be a very, very busy year. And we're still growing into our new duties, understanding, we picked up the record access officer duties on top of the clerk of the council clerk and licensing. And I have a comparable sheet in your packet too from surrounding towns. In most of those surrounding towns that just have clerk functions, have between 2 and 3 people. And there's 2 towns, East Hampton and Greenfield, who have a council form of government. They're just clerk and clerk of the council, they have 3 people. So we're the only one that would have clerk, clerk of the council, and licensing. And currently we have 3 people. So, I think that extra person would really, really benefit the efficiency of the department. As far as coverage, we're looking for this person, again, part-time, maybe 10 o'clock to 1:45 to cover lunches and breaks. So there's always somebody at the counter to handle the foot traffic. And next year also is the 2020 census. We had the kickoff meeting yesterday in Framingham, so there's going to be more additional traffic, more additional working with the federal census people for next year. Next year, you're all going to get a knock on your door. Maybe people are going to manually count.
Personally, or?
What's that?
You come personally or no?
I might be doing that.
Got to have your badge on and your picture. And, So, it's just going to be, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot more, I personally want to do with clerk of the council duties that you want to learn. You just don't want to miss anything. And with additional things from Chapter 48 with the zoning laws and everything that we have going on, it's just, I think it's very important to at least get, I know I put in a full-time last year, at least get a part-time person to try to help out the office and consolidate all those, or make those duties more efficient.
Did you have an org chart?
I did. The org chart's on the last page.
Oh, there it is.
Right now, there's Jeannie, the assistant town clerk. She's hiding behind the curtain in the corner. And then Mary, the senior clerk. We do have a swap person we use to process all the census information. And also what I didn't put on this is the election workers in the voter registrars. If you take it down farther, for elections, I'm responsible for all those people, as well. So, not as high-tech or advanced as some of the other departments, just, it's there. For the anybody have any questions? For the non-salary part of the town clerk of the council, there's an increase due to the general co-payments, and that's the recodification of our bylaws. And we just got, it's right on schedule, we just got an update today that they have updated the organizational analysis that, Tom on the bylaw committee, that was the next step. And then the next step is the detailed codification amongst all the departments, and that's right on schedule for early summer. But there's 2 payments required next year, and those basically the increase of those 2 payments. Okay. And everything else stayed basically flat. And
Do y'all have any questions on any of that?
and the next one, 162, is the elections. And you can see how it's gone down, basically because we just have less elections. We have one less election budgeted. We budgeted for 4 elections in fiscal year 19. Next year, fiscal year 20, there's only 3. And that's being the presidential primary. That's going to be a big one. The preliminary, and then next year's local election.
So if you recall, in the past, that was part of the town clerk's budget.
Right.
And
We asked to have it separated out,
I
yeah.
asked that it be separated to just give a better, because it fluctuates. In a presidential year, it's very
Yeah, it
different
depends
than a
on what
local
year.
election. So this will give us a more accurate accounting of the
And when I
election
said-
costs.
To Denise and Sarah, they did a nice job breaking all this out, because there's some, if it's election meals for workers to, getting supplies, tape to tape off the guardrail out there, it's good that it is broken up by itself.
Police.
So, in the police, exactly, so it's good to have that easy to access, to find out exactly how much each election's gonna cost us, so. And that's why there's a decrease on both salary and non-salary. There is an increase on the salary, if you look at it, because of the minimum wage, even though it is going down. You know, we did budget for the minimum wage that the state is going to require January 1st for next year.
Minimum wage is going up.
Is that-
It's going up.
It's
not
going
down.
up, right,
Yeah.
right. So, that's about it, short and sweet. It's, you know, a lot of those costs are fixed costs that we have, so, other than like the general code for the codification and elections varying, you know, and you guys staying the same, it's, should stay pretty flat, so.
Okay. Other questions for,
Wow, record time, Tom.
you get the
You get the price
Time
for
or-
bringing people back on, well,
People back on
not
schedule.
really. We're not really back on schedule, but.
Thank you very much.
So, we really are close to 7 o'clock. I don't know if you want to continue. We have LCAT, you have my budget. Both of us are going to be here at all the meetings anyway. If you want to maybe do a recap of how you think tonight went, what you want to see. There are some budgets that have insignificant changes other than the contractual, which is going to be the same story all the way through. Do you want them to come? I didn't sign up people for the 23rd yet, not knowing if, for instance, there are departments that don't have much to talk about. Do you want them to come anyway? It's a good time for you all to learn about the departments, but maybe we could do that at a different time rather than the crunch of the budget. So we could continue with more if you want, or we can have a discussion about where you want the rest of this budget process to go. We are going to run out of time because if on the 23rd we have any recommended changes that you want Sarah and I to reflect in the proposed budget that we're presenting the 29th, we can't do that on the 29th. We're presenting a solid budget that night, so we have to have all the stuff done by the 23rd. That means next week we have the school board, and I put public safety at 7, thinking that we have a minimal kind of meeting. We have a couple of public hearings, but not, it's first reading, so it really shouldn't be a big deal. And then we can do all of public safety, so those are 2 other big ones. Do you want to continue? What's your pleasure?
I would imagine that Mr. Mackey's presentation is going to be just a little bitty one, then I say let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's out of the way, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I would just say also that some of the other ones, I
We
would,
take a 2-minute
I
break,
wouldn't
so-
ask, I wouldn't ask that, you know, people without any changes, I mean, for most
Why
of
do they
us,
come
this
if
is
they're
our,
not changing?
this is our third go-around. We kind of have a general sense of what's going on in their departments, and if they don't have any changes, I wouldn't want them to sit here waiting for hours to get up and
Say
then,
don't
Which
have
is
any
what
changes?
happened last year, and
yeah.
they wondered
So
why.
I'm,
they came.
I'm all right with that.
I'm okay with that.
Not seeing it, if you don't ask them for a
So what
change.
if I do this? I go over with Kathy the ones that I think really are insignificant changes other than
Yeah.
contractual.
It's a great idea.
And you and I can just say, okay, here's the list of the ones, is the council all comfortable with that?
Sure.
And then we'll pare it down that way. Good. So you'll get another weigh-in after Kathy and I talk about it.
Question, next year we have
Oh, do you want one of these?
view of chart. Is there
Sorry.
money allocated there, or is that not buried in, or is that just under general expenses? Yeah, I'm trying to remember the charter. I mean, Tom, I remember. Do we have to vote? Does the town vote on the changes to the charter?
For
No.
the charter?
No, next year we have
The review.
Oh.
the
It's a
review,
review.
that 3-year review of the charter.
Right.
Originally, that was my impression, that we would form a committee and then the recommended changes would go to a ballot.
That's what I thought.
However, I went back and, if I'm not mistaken, and read it, I'm not mistaken about that, I read it. My recollection now is that the
The supermajority
council,
of the council.
right, the council, you can staff a committee to, do the
Right.
legwork, but it's the council
That
who
makes
will
the final.
adopt the
The
changes.
Oh, that's cool.
Because that will save a lot in terms of,
Doing a whole,
right,
And then after that, it's in every 5-year plan?
right.
here's an end in
No,
zero. I
it's
thought.
in the,
Zero
it's in
years,
the
right?
zero.
Zero years,
So
yeah.
the
So it's a 10-year
10-year
plan after that.
review.
So do you have to, and I haven't concentrated on that piece, but do you have to have public hearings? Because I
It would
think
strike me that in
Should.
the interest of feedback.
you have to.
You have to at least get feedback.
We
You
have
have-
to
yeah.
allow a hearing of some nature, particularly since it's not going to a ballot vote.
Right. I
Right.
think you don't want your electorate
We
to
don't want
feel
just
cut
seven
out,
people
like they didn't
ruling
have
on
a
rules
chance.
and then not having public input.
It's like a mini town meeting.
Right.
Yeah, which they should.
They
Yeah,
should.
yeah.
So, thank you, Don, for waiting. Don?
That's fine. So I handed you an org chart. We are a very complex organization at LCAT.
See that?
But really, there's no real change there. Myself and the assistant director, Jamie, the two full-time people. One half-time person who's been there for many years. And we have a wonderful swap participant, swap person who does all the scheduling. Currently, I have 3 college interns. I have a young man who just came on who's working with the DPW, with making some videos for Bruce, and that's worked out great. So that will fluctuate between 2 and 3. Might be down to 1 in the summer, depends on kids' schedules. But I've been very happy with the intern program. It's great for the kids.
It's a win-win.
And we have a lot of fun. So, in terms of the budget itself, we can, if you just have questions, or we can start.
This is the LCAT,
It's the LCAT Enterprise Fund.
which is right after the stormwater.
So I can go through so we can start with the revenue, I guess, if you'd like. Our revenue comes from the cable license with Charter Spectrum. We anticipate for FY 2020, based on we get quarterly payments. The payments are based on 3.5% of Charter's gross revenues from cable television only in town. There are approximately 4,700 cable subscribers. So nothing, and I'll just take my soapbox here to make this point, nothing that people who have a triple play Spectrum package, nothing that they pay for internet comes to the town. It is only the cable TV portion. So, and the town only has the ability to, negotiate is not the right word, to come to an agreement with Charter regarding that money that comes back only with regard to cable television. And that's what we operate on. There is an additional transfer because I teach a regular class during the school year, and we do a lot of additional work with the school department. There's a transfer every year from the school department of $10,000. We currently have a variety of video services. I've projected that to be about $1,100 for the upcoming fiscal year. And we have a sponsorship program for the program guide that we publish in paper and distribute through the Reminder. And the total amount, the goal was to basically have the advertisements on the back page pay for the production and distribution of that. We're a little shy. I did pick up a new sponsor just last month, so this would actually go up a little bit from when I did the budget, but I think it's a fair estimate of what our revenue will be. So that gives us a revenue total of $231,500. On the expense side, Personal services for FY 2020 are 185,912, which has actually gone down a little bit from last year, but we've restructured the department. Our operating expenses are up, not quite $1,000, $800 or so, is that right? 18, 17, 18, not even. So our net budget for the year would be $231,500. Oh, no, that's the revenues. I apologize. Oh, because Sarah runs an enterprise fund. Everything has to even out.
Good question. Last year's budget surplus, did it just go, where did that go, Sarah?
It goes into the fund itself and stays there.
Okay,
So-
so that's accounted for in the 2020, the 21,743 surplus?
No.
That's the surplus for 2020.
Okay.
So there's, the revenue that comes from charter goes into, should I have you explain this? Or do you want to stop me if I do the wrong thing? So it goes into an account. That account currently got some significant money in it. From that, so in the old days, I don't operate in the revolving fund, but the model is the revolving fund. So that money went into the revolving fund. Every year, we would appropriate out of that revolving fund what our operating budget would be. So that's what this is.
Okay.
Okay? So I come up with my expenses. So for total salary expenses, our FY20 request is $185,911. Total non-salary is $18,250. That gets appropriated by you guys for the budget. That's what we have to spend. But there's 300 and...
Right, and so, Don, I think it would be helpful for them to know how we're planning, I believe it's next year or the year after, for some capital.
Capital.
And so the capital items would come out of this enterprise fund, so that surplus goes into there to build up, to be able to
Correct.
change over his equipment when it's necessary and do that. You want to describe a little bit about that, and that's why we do put money aside in there.
Right. So, first thing, the money that comes from charter can only be used for cable television related purposes. So that's why it's in a separate account. It can't be transferred in the general fund or anything. By state law, it has to be used for cable TV. When I started here, there was a fair amount of money in that account because the expenses of the department were very low. But we used that money when we built the new TV studio at the high school. All that money came from that cable revenue. So looking forward, we will be in cable renewal next year. The current license will expire. And I will plan to spend a chunk of capital money in that budget cycle using some of that rather than operating money. The other plan that we've had for many years is, and I don't really want to get into this tonight, but you all know technology is changing, and cable television as a medium or as a platform for media delivery has a questionable lifespan, put it that way, because everything is shifting over to the internet. If cable television goes away as a component of media delivery or data delivery or broadband delivery, whatever you want to call it, the regulation goes away and the opportunity for the municipality to negotiate with the provider to get those funds goes away.
So
Consequently,
the revenue source.
what happens to LCAT?
Yeah,
Nobody can predict,
right.
but our goal has to have 2 years of operating revenue in the bank
In that.
in that event, and to be able to have that cushion to plan, what does the town want to do? Now, the way things are going, and I don't think that's going to happen in my tenure, but I still want to plan ahead for the town. What's that gonna look like? And have those 2 years to formulate some kind of a plan of how do we deliver content? Do we still do what we do? Does the town see that as a valuable service to take that on? Does the state, in the meantime, find some way to structure internet regulation, or all those things are up in the air? But that's why that money's there, and that's why I've tried to maintain a pretty prudent goal of operating the department the way we're operating it, so that I have roughly 2 years in the bank.
Very forward-thinking, but
Exactly.
when he first said that, I thought, wow, yeah, how many people are unplugging?
It's true.
And that's gone down. I will tell you the number of, I've noticed the difference because 3 years ago, we had 5,003 subscribers. And now we're just, what did I say, 4,700.
Well, the landlines are starting to disappear, which is part of the cable company.
Yeah.
Everybody's starting to stream, and I know from a technology point, talking to Comcast and Charter, that they don't even want to build new cable boxes
Really?
because they're going to be a thing of the past.
Right.
So there you go. What you're saying is spot on. It's a matter of time, and whether it's 2 to 5 years, who knows? But that's the way the industry's headed.
And what LCAP provides to the community, I find amazing, just amazing. People are always talking about, I saw that on LCAT, did you watch the interviews on LCAT, did you see a council meeting, did you see the sports, there's significant services to the community. To see that go away would be a shame for sure.
We'll see what happens. I'm glad I'm not 30. Do you have any other questions? That was a sort of a disjointed presentation.
No, I thought
Oh, it was very informative.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are down to, back to Denise's question. What is the council's pleasure as we go forward now? We've just indicated that with the departments that aren't showing a net increase, Denise and I will get together and determine which ones those are and eliminate them from the presentation process.
The other thing you can do is just have them do a quick statement if you want. They could do a, synopsis, but, yeah. Joe's looking like, what's the point?
Right.
If there's no change,
But we'd like to see their org chart.
you're going to see everybody's org chart.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
good.
I can only say what's going through my head, and I don't know how the rest of you feel about this, but it's a wealth of information, and everybody's done a great job of giving us all the information we need, even short of those that haven't presented yet. But what's stuck in my mind is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like the bottom line is going to be about $4 million more to run everything than last year, which is probably driving that tax rate from approximately $20.55 up to the range of $22. So our job as a council is to really decide how much of that the residents are going to want to bear, and is there any room in there? We have to decide what's appropriate and what isn't. I think everything that's submitted would be a great improvement to the town, but it comes with a cost, and that's our job to figure out.
You're right.
And at
So
the same
I would start
time-
at the top. I mean, with my own businesses, that's what I do. I look at it. And am I correct? Are we looking at about $4 million
More or less.
on the bottom line?
Hold on, it's a little slow right now.
Yeah.
We can get,
And maybe,
Well, it wasn't,
you know,
it was 59 million and change, and now the new number was 63.
are we looking at the bottom of the total general fund budget? Because that's 33,167,000. That's
Well, that's general fund,
5.5%
but-
increase. That's what you're talking about?
But we also have the school side, so you need the
yeah, I'm
total
talking
vote.
about everything. And I think Kathy
Not
said
including
it.
capital?
You're talking about capital and everything, it's on the next page after that, Joe, and it's 3,000,007,
So that's what I'm coming up
right?
with. And
And that's
it's
without
a decision
any,
this group's going to have to make. I mean, we're going to have to look at everything that's driving, creating that $4 million. And keeping in mind that trimming off 500 is going to move that $22 rate down 25 cents. So there's a lot to digest, but again, from what I've seen so far, we have great information to work with. It's just us working together as a group and figuring out what our residents want.
So I guess that's part of my concern as to timing, that you're going to get lots of information, but you have to have time to digest it and talk about it and come to some hard decisions. So,
Yeah.
I have another procedural question, and that is, what do we see the role of our budget subcommittee in all of this?
I think it's, once we finally have an opportunity to review everything we've received so far, and other information that will be forthcoming, and after our discussions with the departments on the 9th, the public safety, I think at that point, we need to sit down, and then we can sit down as a group in the subcommittee and hash this all out, and start going through it and seeing how we all feel with regards to what
The
makes sense,
council
what
and the
doesn't.
subcommittee, or just the subcommittee?
Just the subcommittee,
Kind of prioritize maybe.
yeah.
Some
So
So
there it's
then we have a gap week, and then that final meeting,
the 23rd?
the 23rd, is when you guys are proposing the
No,
kind
the
of.
29th we're
29th,
proposing.
right,
So we have next Tuesday, then we have a week off.
right.
Then we have
The
the
23rd.
23rd, and then
But that was
so in
projected-
between the 23rd and the 29th, we're gonna have to give them answers.
Right.
Not between, really.
No.
the
Prior
20
On the
to.
23, on the
Right, on
23rd.
23.
So, anytime after
As long
next
as
week.
no one else is, so you're saying no one's gonna present on the
In
23rd?
looking at the schedule, I don't know how, that's why I'm trying to take off those that
That
probably
don't need to
don't
be here,
have
right.
any changes, because the 23rd will have to be this type of discussion, only the final.
With a
final
resolution,
discussion. Right,
Yeah,
not just discussion,
right.
A
decision.
Right, so that will be time consuming. I mean, Sarah and I will both be here, and any department head that you think might have some additional, you might have questions for, if we do this, would that help you without doing that, So certainly, any department head that would need to come back for some additional whatever, we can do that. But the 23rd would be the night that you'd have to say, okay, here's where we want the budget to be.
Okay.
I can ask a question. If we're talking the $4 million that I mentioned earlier, how much of that $4 million is our school department? Is it 60% or 40 or 50?
Yeah.
Well, it's 3.5% of the general fund budget, but that's not of the total general fund uses. So give me 1 minute and I can calculate that for you.
We can do it.
And so that doesn't-
But if you go to the page right after that, it has all
Source
of
of
those
use is
numbers.
right in there.
Right. All of the totals are in there. Down to the 3.7 million.
So I
Number that
would
you're
just
talking
make a generic statement. Let's just say we're all comfortable with the projections that the school committee submitted, and that was 50% of the 4 million, then we as a group look at the other 2 million and find out what, decide what's appropriate and what's not. What do we want to do?
If it stays with the trend, it's like 51% of the total budget.
Yeah,
So if
about.
it stays with that trend, you're at 51% or thereabouts, so it is about 2 million.
So
give or
while you
take.
were out of the room, what I was saying is I believe that we're looking at 4 million prior
Increase,
to last year's
right.
budget. And now, if we whipped through the school part of it and we said, let's just say everything was kosher, right?
Right.
Now we're looking at 2 million, and if we're trying to
If you're
adjust
comfortable with
our
the
mill
number,
rate,
right? That's really what you're saying, right.
It's 500,000 to move it 25 cents
Cents,
south
right.
every time, And that's what we have to do as a group, is decide what we all
In that
feel
2
is
million, what are you
appropriate.
good with?
Pardon?
So in that 2 million, what are you good with?
Well,
none,
we
or
could,
none,
we could
right?
leave it alone, or we could just
Right.
adjust it south. We have to decide, you know, we're at 2055, and we're gonna be at 22 if we left everything alone, correct?
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if we decided that 22 is unacceptable, let's just say that for generic reasons, okay?
And that's
But
higher-
How much do we want to move it? Then we have to decide and prioritize
Right.
on what do we want to deduct to move
Right,
that.
from that,
And to move
right.
it 500,000, I mean, yeah.
To move it 25 cents, you gotta go
is
500K.
500,000.
right.
And
that
I think,
doesn't-
I
yeah,
I
that
feel
doesn't
pretty good
include
that.
the issue we've been discussing with the roads.
Right, we didn't
Right.
even
Or
factor
there's
that back
only
in.
$100,000
That's what we
in the
have- That's
capital.
what we have to decide.
Which is
We're
why I-
adding to the-
What we want to deliver to the residents.
Right, but that's why I'm still, like, I was confused because I thought we were gonna take that out of capital and fund it another
Fund
way.
it separately.
It still
Not
has
that
to
it
be
matters. It doesn't matter.
still
It
has
nets
to be
out the same.
reflected in some part of the budget.
It does, but
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, that was maybe my misunderstanding. But either way,
It's gonna-
it's gonna be an ad somewhere.
So I guess,
You're
I
deferring,
think
you're deferring it if you move it
Yeah.
down, but it's still
Yeah,
going to be
it's-
there.
it's still gonna, it has to be
The other
reflected
thing
in
is,
some line
everybody
in the
can't always
budget.
get everything. I mean, that's just a
So
sad
part of the
reality.
discussion that I'm talking about right now, is that part of the budget committee then? Is that what the budget committee would do, is meet and then make a recommendation
Well, like
to
what
the
we
full
did last
council?
year with the budget committee was we sat down with the school, really, and hammered down
Hammered out some
line by
things.
line
Because
with
it
them,
was
and then we
50.
took some other, because they are
Also capital
51%, we did
projects as
capital
well.
last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So we took that, the capital list, and we basically put the priorities of the capital list together for last year.
But capital's already made their recommendations. We went through that
But
3
you
weeks
all-
ago.
Yeah,
But
they
we
made their
actually whittled it-
recommendation, but we still
We
have
had
to decide.
recommendations last year, we whittled
Right.
down further to see what we
Right.
could get,
Right.
because we were trying to drive that mill rate down.
Right. So
And
this year, though,
we were trying to grasp on the school side,
Mhm.
what, we worked a lot last year on that with the supplemental budgets, which are gone this year, because there was a different view on those. That was the view that they were, our view was that they were a wish list. The submitting people's view
was
is
a
what they
gift.
needed.
Anything above zero
Right.
was gonna be put on
Right.
supplemental, and then they
Right.
said, well, but
So
I still need
there was a
it.
little confusion there, but we did try to like kind of nail down.
Which is why this is way more organized this year.
Right. So that being said, we're in a better position organizationally, but you still gotta look at capital, what's the priority for capital, plus those road
Yeah,
improvements.
and I'm trying
And
to
then we
figure
need
out a
to look at-
roadmap to get where we need to be. in a
Like you're
timely
saying, if we look at the
fashion,
school and say that everything's good there, like, is it's
Well,
yes or no on the school
There's been,
side.
we've had earlier communications this year, right? I mean, it's not like we're jumping into a room
Oh, no,
like
no,
Right.
last year, right? It's,
No.
I would think that we'll be on the same page by the time we formally meet with them.
For
Know
sure.
what we're gonna do, which is great, right? It's just, and
Well,
that's
like you said,
50% of.
That's 51%, give or
51.
take.
So, I think, Mike, your approach is an excellent one to say, okay, what's our goal for a mill rate, and what does that represent for?
And how do we get to it?
For a dollar amount, and then, I mean, I've seen it done where if the school were 60% and the town were 40%, you say, okay, take that 100,000 you want to cut, and 60 of it goes to the school side, and so you
Right.
do it the same, that
Proportion.
Equally,
proportion.
right.
Since it's 50-50 almost, that makes it pretty easy.
What I do feel really confident about is that I believe we'll all come to the same consensus on what we can do, you know? If we
Right.
could do it all, then we do it all, but it's just
Are
really
you willing to be
digesting
there?
it and delivering a product to our residents that we all feel comfortable with, you know?
Yeah, they're gonna be getting hits with the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. We got 30% increase in water bill.
We need to keep in
And-
mind too
and-
that the rates are gonna climb for water and sewer because
Yeah,
of those
exactly.
projects that they're doing, which is totally out of our control, but that's over
Right.
the next few years, so if you just jump the mill rate
To 22.
22, then you're jumping over the next, let's say they come out with their capital project, which costs us in the end,
Or let's,
right?
yeah, let's say they end
Yeah,
up
the
getting the
water
high
sewer
school,
commission, yeah.
you know.
Well, then
you know,
there's
there's
that.
another
That's
one. And they
another
won't
big-
pay for the swimming
No.
pool, they won't be
Right.
paying for things like that.
That's
So-
why I'm saying if there was an overload of a $500,000 there,
Right,
then if we took a half a
Yeah.
million off the 4 million,
right.
essentially when you add it all up, we're at 22. Not, we certainly don't want to go north of 22, but.
I would
No.
That's
think not.
our job, that's what we have to figure out together.
So another thing that I've done in the past is, when you get to a goal, I've presented that goal to the department heads, and at the request of the legislative body said, is there anybody, any department, and we did get departments that would say, I can wait another year, or, you know, I can do with half of a whatever.
Layla did it last
So
year.
you can get some of that, did we do that last year?
Layla did it
Layla,
last
the
year.
library.
Oh,
The library did it last
Right.
year.
But I can do that, you know, as a department head meeting, to just say, look, we can either have the council go over it and make the cuts, or
You do.
if
You
you
can have
have
a
some
first shot at it.
suggestions of
That's a good
cuts,
idea, yeah.
you can do that.
I
So
like that.
when you get to that point, we need to have the time to do that, to get that to you, but
So we need
that's
to
a possibility
figure out
as
where
well.
we need to be
Yeah.
sooner than
Well,
later.
after the April 9th, we can put together the finance committee. And we can meet 2 or 3 times, whatever's necessary, very quickly to hash this all out, and then get back to Denise with some recommendations, and let you go back to your department heads and say, what would you rather see cut than rather us cut?
Well,
You might need more time than that.
it would
for
be
them.
recommendations from the you recommend to the council, you
Right.
don't recommend to me.
That's what I mean, from the
Yeah.
council.
So your subcommittee needs to go to the council and say, okay, here's our recommendations, then that has to come to me.
So we gotta figure out what we need to,
It's all
what
gonna
we're
happen
looking
very
at for a
quickly.
mill rate,
Yeah,
how to get it to
yes.
where we are,
Right.
and let her have some time to say,
Yeah.
this is
Give
where we
the-
are for a mill rate,
Have
this is
the
where we are
department
right
heads
now.
Make some adjustments.
We
where
need
they
to
feel
adjust
comfortable.
down.
But that's what we have. So based on the projected capital recommendations and everything in here, we're gonna come in at what, 22,
2215.
2215? That's accepting everything as is.
Yes.
That's accepting everything as is and worst case scenario for valuation and all of my assumptions.
And what is it at now,
Without the
Sarah?
increase.
And worst
21?
case,
2055.
a worst case
20,
scenario,
55.
or not really worst case scenario, that's not the right way to say it, but the school department projecting what they're gonna get reimbursed from the state.
That's a pretty
That's-
solid number, right?
That's a big number.
That's
too.
pretty,
But the budget's not finalized yet?
No, the
I mean,
state budget
The state budget's
isn't.
not,
No.
no.
so that's always a guess until they know for sure.
Yeah.
Right. But if you want to look at the school budget, for example, if that does happen with the governor's budget, that's 828,000, I want
Right.
to say, increase, and their request is 1,049,000. So if you realistically weigh them against each other, it's only about a $200,000
Right.
Right.
The state.
request.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, okay.
So maybe, and I think this was a good discussion to have, maybe we schedule that at the end of next week's after you've heard school and public safety. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea, because I wouldn't want to shun those other departments. I mean, we've given,
They're
you know,
big.
given them ample time
Plus, those are
here.
big departments, public safety.
We need to listen.
Yeah,
What
there's a
else
lot
do we
of them.
have beside, on the next? I know it's police, fire.
That's fire and emergency communications
Communications.
dispatch. So those 3 departments will be after the public hearings, and then the school board at 5, right? 5 to 6.
Schools at 5 to 6.
Yeah.
Schools
that
5 to
leaves-
6, and then
We
after
got
the
another
public
2
hearings, we're
hours.
doing
We got
public
another-
safety.
Yeah.
Another 2 hours to probably listen to, get the whole picture, right?
That's fine.
So that leaves, like I said, you know, I mean, you've got my departments, but really, there isn't significant change there. I'm not adding personnel, I'm not changing a whole lot of anything. Town attorney, you saw what the increase was there, it's a
we
projected
know the reason.
actual.
Plus, we know the reason. We went
Yeah.
over that when you did the presentation.
Right, where you have the sheet
Like, where you
that
had
has
stuff
all
for
the-
you, like, you went over it during that presentation and explained it anyway.
Right. So, I
Well,
mean.
we've already gotten a lot of that out of the way.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
What I haven't broke down, but I mean, I talk about the 4 million, but also, in fairness, the contractual obligations make up a big part of that 4 million.
Right.
So you're not gonna
They do.
erase the whole 4 million, it's,
Right.
take it down to, you know, with the school committee
Right.
and contractual obligations, and then prioritize, where do we wanna go with the mill rate, and can we? And with help from the department heads, maybe some of them can offer information on what they could go without for another year, if anything.
So looking at it now, it's $1.60 difference per thousand.
What do you mean?
The mill rate from, if we go with,
Oh.
if you went to 22.15 from 20.55 or whatever, it's $1.60.
And keeping in mind that
Is it? I
2019
didn't
tax
know
rate
that.
went down from 2018.
Right, and you usually come in higher anyway on this end, but just rough
But,
figures,
well,
looking at it
yeah.
now, going with worst case scenario, it's $1.60 if you went with
Yeah,
everything
and some of
right
that,
now
like I
as
said,
it
is
is.
non-negotiable with contractual obligations. And if, once we resolve the school part of it, that's 51% of those
The rest
funds,
of it,
right?
right.
And honestly, though, guys, when you look at it, we were hyper-conservative.
Right.
And the cause and effect of being hyper-conservative is in a year like this, when you have almost a correction, because we didn't adopt really hardly anything the last 2
Right.
years.
Right.
And now we're
Yes.
kind of at that point where, you know, me personally, I struggle with adding personnel. And it's not just the base salary, it's the benefits, but it's also the retirements.
Okay.
And yeah,
Right.
and I always struggle with it. I'm not saying that these aren't legitimate needed positions, because many of them are. But that's what I look at.
Yeah.
I'm not just looking at this, you know, FY '20's liability. I'm looking at
It's
10 years from that.
Yeah, still
2030.
ongoing.
Right.
2050.
Right.
And
You're paying
you
the
know,
bill
that
for
we're
it.
we're underfunded, and, well, that's a whole nother nightmare to talk about later. So anyhow, yeah, I mean, that is, you know, just, we were really super conservative, and now I think there are some things that we, you know, we have to address, or they're just
Well,
gonna get
I
worse.
mean,
Birthday.
look at it too, is we didn't hire anybody, like, it's not like we jumped on
Yeah, yeah.
hiring people, you know what I mean?
Right.
We basically went through with a fine tooth comb about who is gonna get positions.
right.
And really, didn't give a lot.
We've added dispatch and fire ambulance, but I don't recall any new positions on the town.
That's what I mean, they're very,
think there
like,
were a couple
limited.
teachers,
Other than, I
right?
think we switched some part-time people maybe
But
at
the
some
teachers
point.
are, I mean, that's a whole nother
Teachers are a whole nother
discussion,
ballgame, 'cause
because
that's
not
it's
even
just,
us.
they
That's not even
can
us.
do whatever they want within their budget, we're just
Right.
approving a number.
Right.
They
They-
have been collaborative and discussed what
Right.
they plan on doing with it, but they're frankly
In
don't have
reality, they
to.
don't have to.
They don't have to. So I don't even really look at that side if they, you know, I'm looking at more of like, yeah, I mean, the dispatch was a big thing, you know, the
ambulance
the ambulance,
service,
you know, but the ambulance is already producing.
Generating revenue.
Revenue, so we knew that was gonna be self-sustaining at some point, and it looks like it's well on track, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a positive thing for the town.
I don't know where the building inspector, that department falls into the budget or employee, if
Under
we've even,
planning.
He does.
if we've even discussed that as of yet, you know?
No, he's somebody that would, but he's been out ill, so
Yeah.
I can't even ask that he would be coming. I don't know that he'll be able to come, but I can certainly represent that the position that he is asking for is super warranted. If you look at the amount of additional inspections that he's been doing over the last few years.
Again,
That's
it
where I'm
is-
going with that.
it
With
is-
enforcement and other
That's
things.
that's
yeah.
something that
It's
could
just
probably
huge, so-
cash flow itself as
Yeah.
well,
Right,
because.
because of the.
It does.
Permits
Our
and
our
enforcement.
revenue
You're
from
running a two-man
licensing
show
and
up there.
and enforcement and inspections
Yeah.
has gone up significantly.
Yeah, and even in,
That was like the
Is-
health inspector thing. They
Yes.
were looking for one too, but, I mean, just simple numbers, you couldn't do the number of inspections that were required
No.
anyway.
Right. That one we did
Yeah.
add the first year, I think.
We added, but I mean, that was based on
Oh,
the
that it
specific
would
number that
generate
there was
some money
no.
to offset it,
Right,
right.
but, and there was no way that you could do what was
Physically
legally
do.
And
required.
it's absolutely.
yeah, even back to
proving
what,
to be-
what Gordon's doing is trying to provide additional services in town so that we don't have to pay
Out
for
of district
school,
placement.
you know, for
Right.
students to go out of town. And that makes business sense. I don't have problems with stuff like that, but then there are other positions that are, you know, non-revenue producing positions. They are what they are, you know.
The-
Election year coming
Yeah.
up, a half-time person doesn't bother me, you know, but, those add up. There's a lot of positions that are being requested here. We're gonna have to go through them and with a fine-tooth comb and determine what are the most mission-critical ones, which ones are, you know, non-revenue producing, so to speak, or not
Well,
able
back
to
office
sustain
is
themselves.
always the ones. I've always worked in back office, and that's always the way, isn't it?
Right.
You know, the salespeople are those that get the applause, and those that are grinding all those numbers for the sales side are, you know, the ones that are, well, you know, you're gonna have to make do with what you have. So that's what our side of the house is. A lot
Yeah,
of it
but
is
there's a lot
just-
of, there's a lot more detail. We got a head start on a lot of this stuff, so it's easier to like process it. So I guess at the end of next meeting, then, that should be the second to last agenda item before we review and adjourn. And then we'll just come up with
Where we need to be.
at least a good idea. But then, no, then we're gonna refer to the committee.
Committee.
So then we meet on the 23rd, and then we have to, at that meeting,
Have the
give
discussion
the marching
and-
order, and then
and
Sarah said we can make
finalize.
changes up to the 28th.
What?
She said, I heard, that's what I heard.
Did you really say that?
I heard.
That's in the email.
She won't say it. We can
thought I heard
She doesn't have to say it, we just do it.
create up her safety that time.
So, also keep in mind that this is my proposed budget to you all, that I'm gonna reflect what, the guidance that we get. But you still have another month before the budget is approved. And I thought that's where the finance subcommittee did their work, was after that we take the guidance from you all to do our budget, but then, we present a proposed budget, and then you have your
drag it
finance
down.
committee that has a whole month to do whatever you need to, not crunched in a week.
Yeah, I
which
don't-
is
Yeah, we did in
Not
We wouldn't be
very-
able to crunch it.
No, because we met 3 or 4 times.
times.
Not unless we worked
Yeah.
on it full time.
We did,
So,
but that
But
was,
there was no substantive changes that you guys came back with.
yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot.
No, after we gave the marching orders of like, this is what we thought, there wasn't.
Yeah, well, sort of.
So
Again,
you
it
guys
goes-
must have done it before then. I
No,
don't.
it goes, well,
We did, I
because the
remember.
final
I
product
think the
came,
three of us at least.
the three of us did it because it was it was different. The setup was completely different because we had to go through all those supplementals and figure out what was necessary and what was not necessary. But those were all like wish list.
Our meetings
In our opinion, it was wish list stuff.
Right.
The department heads, it wasn't. It was what they needed. So
they
like,
wanted to stay at zero
right,
budget.
Yeah.
because
the
that's what you
supplemental
said,
piece
so they
was
just
like
put it all into
not
them.
really supplemental. It was like, this is what like
This
in
is
here where they're
essential.
telling you
Yeah.
what they're requesting for staff.
Yeah.
That was listed as supplemental, which when we're looking at it was like, well, we could throw that whole list away because it's a supplemental, we're not gonna spend that money.
So in
So
this
we did a whole
scenario-
lot of grinding through all those supplementals line by line to figure out for each department what was critical
Right.
for those departments
That I
at the
remember.
time.
But you're saying
And so
that
we
can-
came back, we didn't have a ton of changes to the overall thing because we changed out most of the supplemental stuff to get to the final number.
Okay, that makes more sense. But in this scenario, since we are kind of coming to the finish line and we've been doing this in,
Right.
bits and pieces, wouldn't it make sense for the subcommittee to make a recommendation, like, by the 23rd?
I'm just
We have
concerned.
to air
I'm
back to what we
thinking-
said
And
earlier.
then, well,
Yeah,
no, I'm not
go
saying
back.
that's the
Having
final,
time.
final,
We
but
have
I'm
time
saying
to
that,
make-
that's a general, like, hey, that should be like 95% baked, and then come back on that 29th, and then they can review for any final revisions, but what will we be revising at that point?
I have to provide you with the final by May 1st.
By May
So-
1st.
So I need the recommendations or
What do you
the
need, what
general
time do you need to
consensus
go
of the
for May
council.
1st?
Yeah, I
I
think I'm
think
in
is
agreement
the-
with that, I guess, but,
Yeah.
so what are you saying, we have a month to do after you do that?
So if
After-
you get it April
Then I'm
29th.
doing the
Hearing,
proposed budget
public
to
hearing.
you all.
Right?
Then the council has, you actually have to have a public hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can't go into a public hearing and say, okay, we've already got our mind made up. The public could come back and say, you need to cut it another percent or
700, whatever.
$1 million or whatever. You need to discuss that and react to it. Whether you say it's not possible or, yeah, there's an overwhelming, you'll have a crowd of like library people that will say, we
Save the
can't do
library,
the
or
books, the books the way you want. Or the school saying, you can't cut that music teacher.
Some guys say you need
That's
to
from May
save the boo
1st
for the
on
booby.
to June 1st.
To June 1st.
So that's when I
That's when
thought
we came in.
That's what I
when
said.
the finance committee, the
We did initial
subcommittee-
work on the supplementals,
Right.
right? And
Was then.
we were more in agreement at the end, and the public hearing didn't have much which is amazing because last year's public hearing on the budget
There
didn't
was-
have much feedback.
Right.
There was very few people here, if any.
Right.
So we didn't have a lot of crunching to do after the hearing because there was no feedback
Right.
to what we had already cut out.
Because you
So when
had
we went
done-
through and cut out everything that we needed to cut out to get to the mill rate where we were looking
That's
at,
correct.
we had no real public feedback to say we needed to cut anything else out. So we do have that window afterwards, once the final project comes, or the final presentation is done, then the public hearing's done. We may have to take another look at it, depending on what the feedback is from the public hearing.
Well, on that thought, how much did the mill rate, what did we agree on last year? Does anyone know what? There you go.
We were at 21.
So last year, the presentation that we had done at the beginning in April 10th was 2180. With all the cuts that were made, the final approved by the town council was 2109.
Right.
And then what actually wound up being approved,
Done, was
certified
2055.
was 2055.
But that was based
So-
on you were high, right,
My-
originally?
My estimate
When we
was
came
the
in at
2109.
2108 or whatever it was? 2109?
2109.
So the
And
actual increase was what?
the actual, we actually had a decrease.
You
compared to the
decreased it
prior
last
year.
year.
The taxes
which
with the
is
mill rate went
really
down?
the
Yes.
Mill rate went
Yeah.
down.
Oh, that's, okay.
We lowered it last year.
We lowered it.
So
And
there,
that's not a
that's, yeah,
great-
so
that's
that's,
not a great
has a little to
philosophy
do with
to lower.
probably the amount of
Well,
people.
no, we can't really, because then it looks like a huge jump,
Exactly.
right? So even though we lowered it, even though it's whatever, $1.60 is the difference. If, what numbers we're looking at right now, the $1.60 is the difference. It's realistically not $1.60 because we dropped it last year.
Right.
So if you went 2 years, it's really not a full $1.60. It's
Yeah, we-
different because we dropped it in a
I
year.
believe 44 cents compared
Right.
to the other year. So if you take that out,
Right, if you take that 1 year drop out, right,
Well, that's
it's
what
not
would have to
quite
be
that bad.
explained at the public hearing.
Right.
Because what I'm driving at is there's probably a little bit of a correlation with a tax rate that went down with how many people were in the audience versus looking at going up
Right.
160.
Well, that's true.
But we'll be prepared for it. We
Right, but you have to,
Yeah.
right,
we're
that's the
gonna
thing
have
is,
the, answers.
where was it the year before?
I believe it was 2094.
So, yeah, so it's not nearly,
Yeah.
I mean, it's up, but it's not.
We're way ahead of where we were last year with this.
Right.
So.
So if that comes in at the end of the public hearing, we may have to like sit down the finance committee and say, this is the things we recommend to cut. Or may not, who knows?
Well, we'll
Right,
take it
I mean-
under advisement. It's there, we're here to
Right.
listen, right?
And last year, like I said, we didn't have anybody, which is amazing because it was like everybody,
Well, we had-
everybody you see when you're out there has got some kind of,
We didn't really have anybody before
Commentary
that
on-
either, to be honest.
So I would think you'd want your public hearing almost right at the beginning of May.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
early
we
May,
have,
So you
sure.
have it
we
right
have
when.
wiggle time to.
Yeah, so that.
so that gives you
whatever
time to do
is the
work.
proposed town manager's budget is what you have the public hearing on, and then you've got almost a month to have the
Fix.
finance committee do what they need to do and.
Yep.
And.
So, put it on your
Great.
agenda. Keep the heat on, right?
Yes. Okay. So we're good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, not
Then
bad.
we
This is as good
will.
as it gets, I mean, come on. This is as good as it
Yes,
gets here.
sir.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Oh, aye.
Those opposed? No one usually is. So we are adjourned at 7:47.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
And we will be back here at the same table with the same numbers on Tuesday, April 9th.
Oh, if you all want, my org chart?
Yes.